Welcome everyone to the round robin round 2 of the Chrono Lynx at Fort Dragonia tournament. Today we have CarbonDrank versus PH with a bunch of numbers. For commentary we have Super Handy, AG Deets, Mad Refugee, and Doc Cobran. Hopefully you all will enjoy yourself, and without further ado, I'll throw everything to the commentating in just a moment. We'll give a runner countdown. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good luck, runners. And I'll leave it up to the commentary now.
All right. It looks like they're naming each other after each other. I see PH. I don't know. Did he say C6? Is that what PH is named?
Yeah, carbon is the 6th element on the periodic table. So for carbon drink.
Oh no. It happens.
Oh, he did it.
Carbon
I knew
got
it.
fortune.
So for everybody wondering why we're already laughing, so Carbon and PH, before this run started, had Soft made a rule that if Carbon happened to get Korcha, because he's got it in every race that he's ever done, they would both reset. But then Carbon said, you know what, I actually don't want to have that on my time in case, like, I get a good time. So we just won't reset. And we were like, you just sealed your fate. And he immediately got Korcha.
It happened.
But
Well,
yeah,
PH got partial, so that's not really that much better. So we'll see.
That's true. Yeah, so the reason why we rename our characters at the beginning here is because there is a slight time, like it's so minor, but the frames to load each of the names does impact the time over, a 7-round run. So
Right.
we always rename them to one. Actually, isn't two characters the same time? Doesn't it load by 2 characters at a time? I remember hearing.
it renders every 2 characters, yes.
Yeah.
So, like, ultimately, it doesn't really matter. No one, even,
Yeah.
like, world record times aren't really resetting, like, even in full runs for changes, but there is, like, superstitions or whatever, like, of, like, this character's good luck, Korcha's actually trash, etc., etc.
But Korcha's actually trash, though.
That is true. That's not a superstition. That is fact and law.
No
Yeah.
bats. Yeah, those are really good dodges by both Carbon and PH on the dream sequence here.
Wow,
Both
they are,
runners
like,
coming through
precinct.
clean.
Yeah. Yeah, so for like story wise, basically both runners just got through are coming to the end of the dream sequence. We're gonna basically wake up in Arnie Village, and then did Carbon's screen just go black for anybody else?
It did go
Yeah,
black.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, they're gonna be waking up. It's back. Okay. Yeah, they're gonna be waking up in Arnie Village, and then they're going to basically have to go talk to Lena to get their next quest. Yeah, Carbon seems to be having some kind of technical issue on his side, or maybe the stream is. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, they're pretty synced right now.
Oh, I've been anticipating this match, specifically Carbon versus PH. They're probably they're definitely a very active with streaming Chrono Cross very regularly. So it's fun to get to watch them play against each other.
Yeah,
I would Corporate's another one, but sorry, what was that?
No, I was gonna say I would just say just to add on to that, I agree. I think Carbon and PH are both like 2 top runners. Carbon, for example, is actually someone who's been grinding for world record attempts. He's in 2nd place at the moment. These are both very skilled runners, so I imagine that like we're gonna see probably a pretty close race in terms of like I would imagine like skill and stuff like that. It's just gonna be largely dependent on how they handle it and what Chrono Cross throws at them.
Yep.
Chrono Cross known for being mean at the best of times.
Yeah.
And let's.
That does look like a good stretch though on Surge's part there in the cutscene.
Honestly, his bed does not look that comfortable to be honest. But yeah,
he
this
has
is where
a bed, it's not on the floor.
that's true. But here they're gonna go talk to Lena, basically our girlfriend in this village, and she's gonna be telling us that she wants to make a necklace. We were supposed to wake up and she could go with us, but we were late, so we need to go collect 3 Komodo skills for her necklace, which kind of leads us to our first quest of the game, I would call it.
Fetch quest.
A fetch quest, yeah. But before that, they're gonna make a stop. Before heading to go get the Komodos, they're gonna make a stop in a shop, and they're gonna buy 2 fireballs. And those fireballs are going to help with consistency, and basically every runner buys them for this coming up section because they're gonna be useful.
Now, there's not really a strategy where you don't use fireball
Right.
for the early game here. Like it feels like there's still, even though the fireball element takes longer to cast, like it still feels like it's worth being able to kill Komodos within 7 stamina versus
true.
trying to not.
I'm
Yeah,
feeling
so-
we're going to see Carbon try to go for using as little numbers of fireballs as possible because the attack animations are, like mentioned, faster than the element animations.
That's true. Like to get into like some basic level Chrono Cross speedrun knowledge, our attacks are all like physical attacks are always faster, but you cannot miss with an element. You can't miss at all. But it's just slow. So the idea for like Chrono Cross runners is use elements because they're good where they're needed, but don't spam elements because you're losing time.
And on top of that, just based off the combat system in this game, elements consume
Yeah,
7 stamina
That's true. as well.
to use, so it could potentially mess up with your strategies.
So, just to touch on also in this section, so per the actual main quest, we need to kill the 3 Komodos for their scales. However, for our runners' needs, they need to get a fang, 2 humors. We have a backup for 1 humor and a feather. So the things that can drop what are the Komodos can drop bones or fangs. They also give our scales. Oh no, I'm sorry, they can't drop fangs. I'm sorry, they can drop bones or scales, and feathers.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And the sand squirts can drop fangs. And the beach bums, the thing that PH actually got in his encounter, can drop humors. What's really good is PH got an encounter, which is random. The informations are random, but he got an encounter that had a beach bum in it. So that means if he gets a humor here, which he did.
He did.
Yep. So that means he could potentially skip an entire fight and be good on his humors.
And
I don't think
if you're
they
watching
had
Carbon's... Sorry, Doc.
That's okay. Go ahead.
If you were watching Carbon's first fight, he only had 2 Komodos, but he took a bit of a riskier strategy and used a 3 on both of them, and happened that both of them hit, so he had a very fast first fight, which is why he's pulled ahead. But the bit of the downside is, like mentioned, is that because PH did get a beach bump fight and did get the humor, that it might benefit in the long run.
I guess additionally we can touch on, so we talked about that the Komodos can drop feathers. Most runners don't expect to get a feather. I believe it's a 90-10 split on whether or not you get the feather or not, being 10% being the feather. It just saves about 15 seconds from us having to go do the backup feather.
Which is in a chest in the other world. So I'll get there.
Correct.
I think we'll probably see
agree,
both of them do it. I haven't seen feathers.
I also
my
agree.
personal experience, I feel like the feather. I feel like I usually see the feather on the Mama Komodo fight if I see it. I mean, that's not always true, but like that's where
That's
I
true.
expect to see it.
No, you're right. Yeah, Mama Komodo can also drop one. So you actually get, so you do 3 Komodo fights. Most of them have 2 Komodos each. So what, you get like 7 chances, I believe, on average to get a feather drop? It could be,
Yes.
that number could be wrong. I could be doing NA math, but
I think
Yeah,
it's,
so
10,
10% times 7.
I think
No,
it is, like you said, it's
no,
6
it's-
small Komodos and 1 Mama Komodo for a
right.
total of 7 chances.
Well, if you have 7 chances, then you take 0.9 to the 7th power because you want just at least 1. So you take
Right.
the chance that you don't get 1, which is 90%, take that to the 7th power, and then that's the chance you'll at least get 1. So
Well, there we go.
Let's raise this thing to the 7th power and see what happens. So that means there's a 48% chance you won't, which is like 52% you do, as long as you get 7 Komodos.
Right.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 chance isn't actually
50-50, yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, it's actually not. Additionally, so Carbon's finishing this first section first. By not much, honestly. Like PH is right behind him.
No feather
But-
on Carbon's side.
No
Carbon
feather.
did
I
get
didn't.
shrink, though.
Oh, he
did
did get
the
a strength.
Yep.
So I guess we can touch on that as well for anybody who's not seen it. In Chrono Cross, you don't grind to get levels. You have things called star fights, which are basically kind of essentially boss fights, like how we just fought the Mama Komodo. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, that's what it is. And the stat ups that you get, like the important ones for Surge, like strength, and for like Lena later it'll be magic, etc. Those are rolled. Those are RNG, but they're weighted random. Essentially, the game has an idea of like what your stat value for a certain stat should be at a certain part of the game, and it weights the dice essentially to for you to roll to see if you are going to get like an increase on it.
Dan in chat, one of our other runners in this tournament, did mention that PH got a humor, got the feather drop, and a strength from the Mama Komodo for this first split.
Yeah, very, very lucky. This could be what pulls him ahead.
Yeah, because Carbon is going to have to go and get that backup feather in the chest, which will, like Candy mentioned, will cost about 15 seconds. So we could easily see both the runners be neck and neck going into this next section coming up.
Yeah, I would say that right now PH is, even though he finished that fight behind, I think he's actually ahead because he doesn't have to go get the feather.
Right. And this is kind of what we were touching on earlier with the fact that Chrono Cross is Chrono Cross and can be, especially this first part of the game, it's very RNG dependent, and you'll see if you watch runners go for world record attempts for the full game, you'll see that they quite often reset in this first section of the game because this specific section is so RNG dependent.
That's actually a really good point. So, and I would say that, like, the reason that is because if for someone who's never played Chrono Cross before, like Chrono Cross handles world map encounters differently. It's not like you run and then eventually you get into a world encounter. You can see all encounters on the map, right? So you can avoid them actively, and we do. But in sections like this, and there's another section later in the full 80%, but mainly in this one for Lynx 2%, where you actually have to force yourself to go fight regular encounters, well, with Komodos and such. And so there's just a lot of variance that comes for each individual, encounter. So the more you have to do, the more RNG you have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like because this is definitely most people, you'll hear us talk about how this is like a boss rush, essentially, the way this game is run. There really aren't too many, actual glitches that that we know of to take advantage of for this run. So it's essentially a boss rush, and like Candy was saying, this is kind of the only time you'll see us purposefully encountering the little mobs because they're avoidable in this game.
Exactly.
Also like with Handy mentioned, because of the fact that the leveling progression system is tied to the star mob system, which are primarily bosses, we don't ever actually have to grind on these normal enemies because they don't really provide much over the course of the game. In a casual playthrough they will. There is a concept called a mini star, which is not going to be relevant for this run, that can help with stat gains, but for the purposes of this run, because it's a boss rush and because our stat progression is tied to said bosses, we can get through pretty much all the game without ever having to grind.
Exactly. Yeah, there are some mini stars that we do take advantage of within like the actual speed run, but most of it, like the route itself, like especially like from Evil Ash and stuff like that, who like helped out with the main part of the route initially. It like the way we do the route is actually to basically try to take advantage of with mini stars in mind, if that makes sense. Like, so the best way we can take advantage of it.
There's
Carbon real quick. Oh yeah.
Oh, look at this. Yep.
Yeah, they're really close.
Neck and neck now because of that, having to take that feather detour.
They also have both really good movement right there. It might not look like it, or maybe it does, but you actually can pretty easily run into the back of that fish if you're trying to do like the fast cycle where you don't have to step out of the way. But they both got it.
So I don't know if we want to touch on the combat system in Chrono Cross, at least briefly, while we're going into this next dialogue-heavy section.
Yeah, we can. Let's do that.
Yeah, so basically in Chrono Cross, we have effectively 4 options at any time. We have physical attacks, we have elements, which is basically the magic of the game. We can defend and we can run away. Chrono Cross is interesting in that every single fight, up to and including the final boss, you could run away from at any time you have control over a character. So, if things go wrong, you're always able to run away, which is also, if you're looking for a RPG game to look into speedrunning, it's a very good intro in that regard, in that you don't ever get stuck. If you happen to mess up, you can always run away and try again. But on top of that, the physical attacks are separated into 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. Each character also has 7 stamina total that they can work with on a given turn. Each of the 1, 2, and 3 physical attacks consume that amount of stamina, and once a character's out of stamina, they can't go anymore. Now, with the 3 different attack levels, a 1 is a weak hit but is very accurate, a 2 is about mid, and then a 3 is a strong attack but is inaccurate. But 3s are also the only attacks that can crit. The other interesting thing is that as you attack in a chain, your accuracy goes up for subsequent hits. So if you hit a 1, for example, as your first hit, you will see that the accuracy for all your other physical attacks will also go up. Quick aside, that it looks like Carbon's going for this extra fight because he needs a humor as well. So PH is actually pulling even further ahead here because PH was able to get a humor from the one Komodo fight.
I wonder if Carbon. I guess actually, if he doesn't get the humor.
I don't think Carbon sees the humor in this at all.
No.
No, I actually think that was a really good explanation of the combat system. So in Chrono Cross, the combat system, all the parts of it kind of play into each other. So it's very hard to kind of give a good explanation. I think that was a very good brief explanation of how the system works.
One last little bit is that the element, which is like the magic system, is that like I said, the physical attacks consume 1, 2, or 3 stamina. Elements will consume all 7 of your stamina. And if you use an element, you only need 1 stamina to be able to use an element, and then you will go into the negative stamina if you use it. So runners will also take advantage of that to potentially get as much damage in on their turn as possible when they can, because of the way stamina refreshes, where stamina refreshes when your other characters do things.
Right. So the stamina that your allies use will refresh your character who's negative or whatever. It'll refresh them back.
Also, eventually turns will automatically refresh everybody. Like once the enemy goes, if you defend and then the enemy goes, eventually you will get a full refresh.
Right. Exactly. I guess we can slightly touch on just to understand how turns work. So if you're looking at Chrono Cross, you're probably interested in other RPGs, and you've probably seen in a lot of RPGs where there's an ATB system with a bar that is what kind of passes, turn to turn. It's based on a speed system that way. In Chrono Cross, there isn't that. What there is, though, is an AP system, with AP standing for action point. And so we have a base, a floor level AP that we know for each one of the enemies. For these fights, all these have 9. All these enemies have 9 AP. And so how we were talking about, a 1 takes 1 stamina, 2 takes 2 stamina, so forth and so on. That stands true for the amount of AP that we're spending as well. So if we use a 3 and they start at 9 AP, they go down to 6 AP. The only difference is that where elements drain 7 stamina, they only take 1 AP. So that's another benefit to using elements.
And to touch on that, sorry, go ahead, Silver.
No, I was just gonna say elements and stamina work very closely together in this game, and I feel like for beginners that's kind of the big thing to try and understand and master when playing this game to succeed.
100%.
So just one thing to touch on, that Handy mentioned all these enemies having 9 AP, which basically means that we can spend a total, once an enemy goes, their AP will reset to a minimum of 9, which means that we will have a minimum of 9 AP worth of actions to take before they will go again. This is not always guaranteed to be 9. They can go higher than that, and that's what runners will refer to sometimes as hoping for a high roll, because it is still RNG based in a way.
Okay.
But-
So, wait.
PH.
Ph didn't get the drops he wanted.
I
from
knew
them.
it.
Why?
I was.
So-
no.
I was gonna say this earlier when we were talking about the one humor risk, but I didn't want to
Yeah.
jinx him, so I didn't say it.
So I don't think I don't think that's actually that bad. So the thing is that like
No.
when we talked about that you needed 2 humors, it was for this reason. You can actually get the rare drop of copper instead of the vest that you can get from I believe it's salt here. And the thing is PH didn't actually get that. So normally what we do is you take the armor off of Pashul that he has and you replace it with this mail that you get here, or the vest that you get here, and we disassemble the other one for the other humor. However, that's basically what we're going to use that for is we're going to use the materials so we can make better weapons that you normally don't get access to casually. We're going to get the steel, or not the steel swallow. It is a steel swallow, right? Yeah.
Ph
I
mentioned
always
in
know
his-
it's the upgrade, but
Ph
go.
mentioned he didn't get a fang,
No,
so he got the feather but not the fang.
correct.
So-
This happened to
Oh.
me during a practice match last week. Basically, so he can go back and take more bum fights, but he'll have more party members at that point, and they'll take longer
Yep.
to do those fights. Or he can. Carbon has actually been developing ivory dagger strats so that you only make the steel swallow and not iron dagger, and you just use the ivory dagger that kid starts with. And probably, I bet that's what PH is going to default to now. We'll see what happens.
Right. I actually think
Carbon and PH both got through the hardest part of the game. Well, not
Ye-
quite. Carbon has one more text box. The hardest part of the game is saying no to kid 3 times here because the route through this part of the game is dependent on us saying no to kid 3 times so that we can get Lena to join our party. Because if we say yes to kid, we will not get access to Lena. And Lena will be very important for us in the last part of the Lynx at Fort Dragonia section. So both
Zan-
runners were able to say no to kid 3 times, so we're good.
Success. We have a
We
run.
did
We
it.
have a match.
we did it. So Zan in chat says probably PH is going to disassemble the bow and axe and go with ivory dagger, and that's actually what I was going to mention. Is that I do
Yes.
think PH will opt. I think both of these runners, if they didn't get what they like all the materials they needed for the iron dagger, they would both opt to do the ivory dagger instead. And the thing is like ivory dagger can work. Iron dagger just is obviously nicer. You know, it's more consistent or more consistently good. But when you're like with runners like Carbon and PH, you have a lot of experience. They're good at counting, like health. They're good at like judging AP and stuff like that. The ivory dagger does become a little bit more viable, right? Because they're able to mitigate a lot of the issues that come with it.
Yeah, basically, like on a god tier run where you're super lucky, the ivory dagger honestly isn't that much of a disadvantage. But it's when the run doesn't give, which again, as we've said, you can count on Chrono Cross giving you like the exact wrong scenarios that you don't want, and that's where you're gonna be sad to have an ivory dagger when those things happen.
Right. Really, the two main things are if like Surge is also weak, it's really bad, and if Surge is
Yes.
strong and he misses, then it's really bad because you don't have the damage made up by a kid.
Surge can be
But-
Surges can be the strongest character and hit every single stat up, and if you can't hit because
Yeah.
the RNG in this game is working against you, then it doesn't even matter. Which, speaking of Surge's strength, PH was able to get a strength off of the Salt and Pepper fight where Carbon did not, so PH is actually 1 strength ahead. And this is kind of expected because of the stat growth that was mentioned. Is that they're not going to be consistent. It's gonna fluctuate as we go
Right.
through. So it's just something interesting to keep a note of. So even though PH won't have Iron Dagger, oh, it looks like Carbon got caught by the dog.
Oh no.
Oh no, that dog! It's
which
so
even-
easy to catch.
So PH is actually starting like the first of like well, I guess you would count Card Salt and Pepper as a tutorial fight, but I guess the second tutorial fight of the game with Salt and Pepper here. So you saw him defend initially because there's a lot of fights. We didn't touch on the last one, but there's a lot of fights in this beginning section where you actually can't. Your damage and stuff doesn't matter before a certain point. So we defend as to not waste time and stamina and stuff like that. But yeah, both of these runners, this fight right here in particular, has a knack for not going well, like in races and stuff like that. There's a lot of misses that usually happen, so I'm hoping to not see that for PH or Carbon.
So far, Poshel's not
Yeah. Poshel
not
has
pulling
a
his weight.
no. Poshel hit both. Yeah, but
Okay, I
Poshel
thought I
does
saw a miss on PH's screen earlier. Maybe I was wrong.
Poshel does have a tendency to miss,
Right.
or at least it feels like Poshel has a tendency to miss more so than other characters, despite the same percentages.
Have y'all caught? Do you know what each of the runners' strengths are at the moment? I haven't actually
Yeah,
kept up with it.
PH is 11, Carbon is 10 at
Oh,
this
okay.
point. On Surge, I'm not sure about Magic because it's not quite relevant yet.
Right.
Alright.
PH
Also,
keeping a little bit of
PH had
lead.
a really clean fight there, and he missed this string. But that's okay.
Oh.
Doc, were you
Got
saying
the
something?
strength on Lena. I was saying
Oh.
Postle was really pulling his weight for PH there. Postle just I guess, did a doggy thingy in the guy's face and he died.
Ooh,
Did you see
corporate.
what magic
corp-
we're leaving Lena at for on
Oh,
PH's
yeah.
side?
Yeah,
12
corporate
magic.
12
That-
magic,
12
thanks.
That's really good.
That means, so whenever we talked about we did this route with denying kids so we could get Lena will become more useful post the Viper Manor section that we're about to go into. And we usually are a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we're waiting to see what her magic's going to be when we get her, because it's really important. But leaving her at 12 is really, 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 really good, because that means that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to pick her up at probably like at least 13, 14, like in like really bad scenarios from this point on.
Poshel is doing Poshel things over on Carbon's run, just his
Carbon is-
2-3s.
Yeah, Carbon also getting through it. Nice, nice. Carbon
this is-
going to 11 strength. Go ahead.
Oh no, this is just fun because like, as you were saying before, this is why I was kind of excited to watch these two at this simultaneously because PH is kind of getting the good luck and then Carbon's kind of getting all the bad stuff. Well, not necessarily. I guess PH also had some drop stuff, but watching Carbon recover from that and he's still not that far behind PH at this point.
Yeah, corporate in chat says Carbon is getting trolled.
Yeah, he's
So
gotten
he's
zero.
understand it.
He's gotten zero rolled a couple times, which, in the context of Chrono Cross, is we mentioned about the AP that enemies have of when they go. Except for the first turn of the game or of a fight, where normal enemies on the map, when you run into them, they have a chance of going before you even get a chance to react, and that's what we refer to as zero rolling. Bosses, on the other hand, will always have a starting AP of at least 1, which means that we will always get a chance to do something before a boss goes.
Right.
In terms of normal enemies, which we, like
Ooh.
Handy mentioned earlier, that we do fight a couple of them in this first part of the game, more so than with the rest of the full run, that we do have a lot of chances to get zero rolled. And also, while we're going through dungeons, we have a chance of getting zero rolled if we happen to get caught by enemies.
Not only did PH is he happen to do the Ivory Dagger, which you're about to see PH. He's this is one of the things that gives us access as runners to the knowledge of this kind of gives us the access to go get better weapons here. Is we're gonna pick up this Profiteer's purse that's hidden back here. We're actually not gonna use it. We're gonna disassemble it for the iron inside of it. But as we talked about earlier, PH is actually gonna do Ivory Dagger if I'm not mistaken. And the reason I said ooh just now is because not only is he gonna do Ivory Dagger over Kid, he picked up Kid and Kid has 7 strength.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, so as
Pretty
you can
much,
see-
we're really relying heavily on Surge pulling the full weight on the Viper Manor. So basically, we're hoping that Surge will not miss any of his attacks moving forward for the next dungeon.
Carbon's kid is
Right.
also 7 strength.
Ooh.
Carbon, did Carbon get all the materials he needed for an Iron Dagger?
I believe so. He got a
I
humor
believe
from
so.
the extra beach bum fight in K-Pal, and he also got the
Two things.
ivory dagger. Or
So-
the ivory vest. My bad.
It's a little bit further from this point on, but Zan in chat also says, I think PH will go for guard skip with these stats and equips. I think we can touch on guard skip a little bit as we get closer, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see both these runners can and are capable of going for guard skip. So it'll be interesting to see.
I'm not
Guard
sure-
skip? What manner of skip is that?
Oh no.
I love it.
I'm not sure if PH ever goes for guard skip. Is that?
In his PB attempts, I actually think that he's cut it out for now. Except, so me and PH and I have talked about this before. So I kind of like my idea on guard skip is like at certain stats, or if I'm like behind, or something like that, or if I'm like, if it's kind of like a catch-up thing or whatever, I'll go for it. Or if I'm like really low strength, so I know that the fights are going to take a long time, I'll go for it, right? Because then I know I can reset. So I don't know how he'll handle it in a race scenario, like with these stats.
I know Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. No, you go.
I was gonna say, I know for these two runners, I know that they have slightly different philosophies when it comes to strats.
Right.
Throughout the game, I know Carbon will opt for the riskier, but the high risk, high reward strats, whereas PH will tend towards the more consistent, but on average, lightly slower strats. And that's just a difference between the two runners. But so I'm curious as to what PH will decide to do in terms of this guard skip. But
I agree. I also
sorry.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's coming up in a bit, but since we're talking about guard skip, Chrono Cross is interesting in that there is not really any sort of sequence breaks. Even when we do the full any % run of the game, we more or less play the game as intended the entire way through, with no major skips or anything like that. And there's not a lot of glitches throughout the game, as was mentioned earlier. Guard skip is one of the few instances of at least a useful glitch for running through the game as fast as possible.
And I wouldn't even really still categorize it as a glitch, honestly, but you're kind of just, taking advantage of the frames. Like, I don't know, maybe it is.
It's not really a glitch. I would say so. The gist of what guard skip is basically the way that text boxes are rendered, like individual text boxes, like from two different people, is that like between one popping up or whatever and the next one coming up, there's like a frame, literally like a frame or so between that. There's like they're not, there's nothing up, and so you can get an X press there or a confirm press to get inside the door behind them. But I was just going to mention that, like, for anybody who's played Chrono Cross, you might be wondering, like, oh, so you took the Pierre route to get into the manor. And that's right. So Pierre is not actually very good. He's just the fastest way for us to get into the manor. He does serve one use, which you're about to see, besides getting into the manor, you're about to see PH take advantage of in this fight.
It looks like
Speaking
PH
of
missed.
time to catch up, looks like PH is about to catch up.
Yep, PH missed another strength on that guard fight. So that was a case of a fight that wasn't really a boss fight, but still granted a star level. It just so happened that PH missed the strength on this one.
Right, that is a good point. So whenever I mentioned the star battles earlier and I said mainly it's bosses, there are exceptions. This is like one of the exceptions I was talking about. Is that like this is just considered a star fight and it's just guards before you fight catch up.
Oh, Pierre, you were so close. He only did almost 400 damage more than your max health.
This is another
Pierre.
fight. This is another fight where we have to defend until the story bit is over, and it's right after this revive.
By the way,
But
notice Corbin there quickly switched Pierre to the front when he started walking through the door, so that Pierre would be the one to take that hit.
Good
Yep.
point. Yeah, that's what I was about to mention as well. Is that whatever character you have in the front of your party is the one that will take that hit, and obviously Pierre is useless to us, so we want him to be the one to take the hit.
Well, I guess we didn't really touch on like leadership. So like if you are the leader for your party, you are also the one that will always be put in the center out of the three. And you'll kind of notice, so there's actually like two different like ways to view battles in this game. And if you hit triangle while you're able to select monsters, it can switch you to a more theatrical view, I think is what they call it. and it kind of zooms in, so you're looking straight at a person as you select them. And that theatrical view is actually, so it's not fun to look at because you can't really see what you're doing, or at least it takes several seconds to see what you're doing in that view. But you don't have to see what you're doing because it's consistent compared to the other view. So it's very nice to take advantage of knowing, hey, you can just, if you're selecting an element or trying to attack a certain mob or something, like you will always know, oh, like I can just button mash the X or do an X left X to select somebody, and it will always be the same person based on your party order.
When you're in this mode, it essentially treats the battlefield as like kind of like a circle. And so like if you hit like, if you want to get to your center character and you're aimed at like an enemy, if you hit like left or right twice, you'll end up at your main character always. Your inputs are consistent. Well, as much as like CCL allows. But
also,
whereas
if you have a buffing element, it will always default to your main character as well.
That's true. Right.
Yes.
Whereas like the default camera mode, it will depend on where the camera is actually placed in a certain fight. It'll change like how inputs are handled. But yeah, PH still keeping his lead. He's actually heading into the manor section here. We'll see if PH will go for guards. Well, he actually could do it on the way back out, but like he can either take a fight right here already to get to fight these two front guards guarding the door before he goes and gets the key, or he can save it to potentially go for guard skip.
Just really quick in the comments, Aoishi asked, I love Chrono Cross. Is there a place to learn a lot of these tricks you all use? And Dine, we do have a command for the Chrono Cross Discord link. Feel free to drop on by, say hi. We are a very good community as far as helping out people new and interested in the game, and we have a whole compendium of links and references to help people out. So check out that link.
Additionally, this race that you're seeing right here, this Lynx 2% race, is a category that was actually added officially and serves as a really good intro into the game. So you don't have to just be like, oh, I have to learn 7 hours of material like right at the start. You can use this actual run that they're doing here as a good like intro into learning the full game. It'll learn your battle mechanics. It'll learn you basically everything you need, to succeed in the rest of the game as well.
And some of the more technical things that we're not necessarily going over, like stamina pushing and whatnot, that isn't really super necessary for the context of this race for commentary's sake.
Right.
You can learn about there, but it definitely will teach you about the ins and outs of the combat system, which will translate to the game as a whole. So the Lynx 2 or the Lynx at Fort Dragonia category is definitely a good starting point.
He's going for it.
He's going for it.
So he picked up that guard so that he can, like, if you have a guard aggroed on you, you can get behind these guards. Does he get it? He didn't get it. No.
Oh, I'm sorry, PH.
So what that does is, like, if you go for this skip, like, it essentially loses you probably about 20 seconds. So there's a small punishment for it, but the gain is like usually about over a minute.
Real quick here, so this little mini game that Carbon's doing, I just want to mention this is scripted. When you do it, you just have to feed the little Dragonites, and it's a very set sequence. You just have to memorize it to get the key to get into and do guard skip in the first place. sorry, continue with your comment.
Oh no, all I was gonna say is that you lose. The risk to reward is actually pretty high compared to like there's another small skip in the game, but it's pretty high. Like you get a lot for it, and it's not that hard of a loss, right? Because you have to fight these guards regardless, but like whether or not you do guard skip and fail, or if you don't do it at all.
All right, let's see if Carbon gets the guard skip here.
Oh, both of them going for it.
This could put him ahead if he gets it.
It could. He got it.
Carbon got it.
Yep, so that's what it looks like when you get it.
So Carbon got the guard skip, and now he has pulled ahead because of it.
But luckily, it was only a 3-guard fight on PH's side, so the fight didn't take that long. So this is really close.
You can still see the risk reward of going for it.
Right.
Yeah, because this is the risk now, because he has to keep running now to try to get in the building.
Yep, because that first guard was still aggro to him.
You can actually take a little bit of a smaller circle. You don't have to go around the wide around both those trees. Just as like a little bit of information, you can actually just go around the first bottom tree. It does become a little bit risky because like if you don't do like a little bit of a wide enough circle, then he'll immediately aggro back onto you from being too close, and you have to literally do a whole nother circle before you can get into the door.
Both of our runners are in the manor now, and you saw that they both walked up to a statue and immediately put in 0-0 on the statue, which caused them to fall down. And that is because every time we do a run in this game, the code to get up to the upper floors is random. But even if we happen to guess what the code is by some miracle, the game will not let us pass. We have to trigger some story events to get the code so that the code actually works. So we will just input 0-0 because it's the fastest. We'll immediately fall and be able to proceed with the story.
On that note, we're also about to see if chat wants to play a game where if you guys want to guess what the codes are for Carbon and pH are going to be, it's going to be two numbers on each side, one for turning the statue to the right, one for turning to the left, anywhere from 1 to 9. 9 being the worst, 1 being the best. Because each time, if we have to do 5, if you like a 5-5, you have to watch it turn 5 for each direction. Take some time.
Takes a while. You'll also notice, so neither runner has bothered to heal their Pierre. They've had their Pierre, because Pierre dies, right, to catch up, as we saw earlier. And sometimes he'll get hit again after that, and he'll be dead at the end of that match. One thing that I kind of always liked about the battle system here is the fact that it gives you the option to heal at the end of every fight. You'll kind of notice there's 3 options there. One to use elements that your character, if you've ramped up your stamina to be able to use elements, you can then use those elements at the end of the match. You can also opt to use additional consumable elements in addition to that, or you can say, hey, don't heal my characters at all. And we actually use all 3 options at various points in this game.
Ooh, good code from Carbon. Carbon got 42.
42.
The answer to life, the universe, and everything.
I also want to touch on, it's not something that it's in a lot of routes. I'm actually curious what Carbon's going to do with it. But normally where a lot of people wait for Glenn to walk into the room or whatever before falling behind him, Carbon picked up a turn green from the cabinet, which is usually not routed in. So I don't know if he's just doing it because you have a little bit of time there, or if he's got a use for it.
He does. Oh, sorry, go on, Doc.
6-2 for pH.
Oh.
Sorry.
Nice.
For Potion.
Two pretty good codes overall.
Yeah, anything less than 10 is below average, so that's really good.
You see both of them. Well, you can see PH going into the armory now, where the secret password is silence. So we just sit on the text box for as long as we can until they say, "Yep, you're good to go."
Where's the
This
pork
one's
chops
about
in
2.5
chat
hours.
asks, yeah, what's the ETA for time? And it's about 2.5 hours. Well, probably I would say both these runners are looking to probably max around like 2:15, 2:20, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
For a race time.
Yeah, I know both of these runners have times for this category in around 2:10 plus or minus a couple minutes. Especially even in their full runs, that it's like that.
Daffy in chat also says no revive for PH. Interesting. So this is some things that you can do. There's choices you can make as a runner and like what to do and what not to do. Not putting the revive on is a little bit more risky, but there's a reason for it. So after the manor, there's a forced menu that pops up where normally we take the iron dagger off of Kid and we take off the revive, or we remove elements from Pierre. So by not putting the revive on, because he also doesn't have the iron dagger to take off anyways, he's probably just going to mash through that menu. He gets to skip the menu completely.
On Carbon Stream, the other use we have for Pierre, where Pierre will turn yellow on Surge so that he does a bit of extra damage to these bulbs.
Yeah,
Pierre has 2 uses
like the
in
type
this
to
run.
turn yellow and then run away. That's like Pierre.
Yellow. I love a Green Fang XYZ asks who gets silence on that first ever playthrough. I specifically remember like spending forever just reading through the options and considering, oh, which one would it be? That like, and then I got cut off because they're like, oh, you can come in. Is what happened.
Honestly, though, for the difference between getting guard skip and not getting guard skip, they're both really close still. Neither one of them got poisoned, as far as I know. I didn't see. Yeah, Carbon didn't either, so that's really good. They're about probably 30 seconds apart here.
Yeah, Carbon had a very good fight, which is different from how the rest of the fights have been going in his run so far. He's been having a lot of misses and a lot of RNG trolling so far in this race. So a good fight for him this time. Looks like PH also had a pretty good fight as well. You can see Carbon is going into this room with Karsh, who we fought against earlier in the game.
Surprise, surprise.
And he's trying to get into this chest, but Karsh isn't having any of it. But
Oh, go ahead.
Eventually, if we pester him enough about this chest, he'll let us get this item.
Yeah, it's really funny actually because we can sit here and bother him for 20 times, and eventually it lets us into the Get the Dream Gauntlet out of here, which is a really good item. I can explain that in a second. But the fun fact is, from my understanding, I forgot who's told me, but in like strategy guides and stuff like that, it actually tells you that you can't get this until later. Like you just have to wait until later to get it. Which is funny because this actually is a very useful item for speedrun purposes. It's actually really good that it's there because it gives us +3 strength on the character that we put it on.
Yeah, kind of the best kept secret we use in the speedrun, essentially.
Right. It's one of 2 gauntlets that we really hope to get. Sometimes you get 1, sometimes you can get 3. But for the purposes of this run, that's really the only one that's useful. Well, no, that's not true. The rare drop from Salt and Pepper and Mount Pyre, I forget, that would actually be a pretty good drop in this category as well.
And if you're handy here, the one that you're expecting it to get, you get at a much lower rate than seemingly everybody else. Which is why that one is lovingly called the handy drop.
There is a drop called Coin the Handy Drop that we'll talk about when we get closer to that. We'll see if we get it.
We're coming up on the Marcy fight. Whew.
Marcy is a fight that if you're learning this category first as a beginner, and just as a beginner in general, like is one of the fights that can be really punishing because it's one of the fights that really needs you to take advantage of like understanding AP. You need to understand like HP flags and like what happens in stamina. It just like if you're this fight can go well if everything you just follow the notes and everything hits and lands. But when things start to kind of fall off the rails, you kind of need to understand the core concepts of the battle system that you're using and the core concepts of like the battle itself, like for Marcy in particular. Because Marcy actually has 2 HP flags. Marcy has an HP flag at 50% at 249 health, where she will Cat's Cradle you. Then at critical health, 25% health, she starts Ice Blasting everybody. She Ice Blasts she'll do it twice in a row. And that can be really dangerous because not only can Ice Blast just straight up kill if she's been attacking somebody, but Ice Blast also has the chance to proc Frozen. And Frozen, say that you have, like she kills, Pierre or something, and then you happen to get double procced on Frozen from Kid and Surge. If nobody in your team is alive and unfrozen, you get game over. Which has happened. I've had that happen. It's unlucky, but it has happened.
It's almost a new runner's like rite of passage is to suffer through a bad Marcy run.
I remember doing my very first run of this game and getting to Marcy and being so nervous for it because of knowing what can and can't happen. This is the first really like Andy was mentioning, the first fight where knowing the battle system is very important and knowing how to correct when things don't quite go to plan.
Well,
I do want to touch on... Oh, go ahead.
Marcy is so angry here and keeps trying to put Frozen on your party is because people like Elsa better, so that's the thing. She's just jealous.
Okay. I will say, the key concept for this fight is like, Cat's Cradle is not that important. That's a nice crit.
That's 2 crits though. That he didn't want that second one because now he's Cat's Cradle. She's Cat's Cradle super early.
This is fixable, which is like especially for a runner of like Carbon's experience or whatever.
Yeah.
The idea is that so that's a little bit early. He's gonna dash and slash. Is that you basically say things go off the rail? The way you fix it is you're counting damage, and since she goes into she starts ice blasting on her next turn when she goes into crit.
Oh, he's
So you
stealing.
count-
Oh no, never mind. That's fireball.
No, fireball.
Never mind.
Okay, yeah, that should be enough. See, so that's what you want right
Ah,
there.
yeah.
Is you want her to not get a turn when she's in crit health, which is at 125 health. She'll have 125 HP left. So he had enough stamina to deal with it. But where fights go bad for new runners is they'll spend all their stamina to put her into crit health and then not be able to finish her before she gets her next turn.
Oof. Marcy
Carbon
killed
also got
Kid
the Ice
and
blast drop, so that's good.
Marcy killed Kid on PH's, and PH
Yeah,
doesn't
so-
have the revive equipped, which we were.
Okay,
which
you actually
mentioned
just
earlier.
saw PH defend all. That's because even though she's getting extra turns, he wants to have the stamina because he thinks he's about to push her into crit. See, that's what he's tapping her because he's not sure. He's going to defend again. He's trying to play it safe. He does not want to get ice blasted. So he thinks he's like right at the threshold. And so he's trying to see. Yeah, he was right. Okay. Oh, misses.
Yeah,
He
but
could
he's
be
missing.
dash and slash is going to be not enough, I think. Pierre might have to come in and be the hero. Swing threes.
Either that or Pierre's going to be the last one alive, and he'll run away.
Oh, he didn't even get a +1 or anything like that. So she rolled exactly 7. No frozen. No frozen.
Oh, there
Okay.
she goes. Listen.
He actually wants, yeah, I think he wanted Pierre to get frozen there because it would refresh Surge. Yeah, yikes. She's gonna cure plus if he doesn't kill her. Yeah, this is one of these fights I can just. This is where it tumbles. And this wasn't even just an inexperienced thing. Missing right there, Kid dying and then missing was one of the bad things. When I ever said it
Lord
can just
have
happen,
mercy.
this is why. Yeah,
PH got through it though.
he got through it.
Ooh.
Yikes.
It just took some time, and that's just unfortunately one of those things that can happen. No revive took its price.
Yeah, no revive. I don't know if I'll ever try for that strategy, to be honest, just because to me it's not. I guess if you're going at like he is Ivory Dagger, right? So like if you're Ivory Dagger, I can see the temptation of like just not wanting to do that menu at all. But I don't know. I feel like between Marcy and Lynx, just so much can go wrong that I don't know. It's all.
I think for a race I would put it on, but it has its merits
For
for
race
sure because
settings.
like because like in a regular thing, like most of the time you're gonna be fine without revive. And then if things go really really bad, you end up resetting. Like if this was a regular run, PH would reset from that kind of a Marcy fight. It's just he got punished for it in a race.
Well, I think PH is also maybe thinking Carbon is, you know, like really far ahead and all perfect and everything, and then he has to do whatever he can to catch up. And so, whereas he didn't realize he was actually ahead when he started doing the no revive strat and things like that. So
These next two fights, like the one we just did and this coming up one, are both two fights that are this is another fight coming up that it really punishes new runners for not understanding the battle system. So excuse me for the lengthy explanations, but I do want to kind of touch on like what they're all trying to do in this fight. So for Carbon coming up, this is another one where you deal with HP flags, right? We also deal with the fact that we're going to try to take control of control what Lynx does after like the first few turns. So Lynx has 861 health. At 25% of his health, and crit health, when he gets his turn, he'll Nostrum, which heals for about 200 or so. And so we're gonna basically count damage for that as for this fight as well. And when we send him into crit health, we're going to also try to do that on the turn that we've already had Kid do Pilfer, because he initially has a flag that says, okay, when he gets into crit health, I'm going to use Nostrum to heal. But he also has another flag that says, if I get hit with an element, I'm going to respond with something. So if he gets hit with Pilfer, he'll respond with Imbecile. If he gets hit with Dash and Slash, he'll respond with Anti-White. And so as soon as we put him into crit health, we want to also override that initial flag with the flag that says don't Nostrum, instead use like Imbecile or Anti-White. And that's how you have a fast fight.
PH is getting a bit unlucky. With the Kid death, PH is actually out of tablets. Oh yeah, okay, PH got them tablets now. but he was not able to heal Kid, so she died in the guard fight. But now she's good for the Lynx fight coming up.
Oh, I missed it. So did Carbon end up using the turn green element that Handy observed that he picked up earlier? There is. He's kind of, I know in the past, developed a theory of using the turn green for this fight specifically, but I missed if that's what the strategy he's actually doing. Unfortunately.
I don't believe so.
I additionally also did not see, while Carbon is doing this fight, I actually did not see if they both got Ice Blast or not.
They did.
But
They did
They
both
did,
get Ice
yep.
Blast. So
So
you can
we
see on
just saw
Carbon
that-
stream that Carbon did the Pilfer on Lynx, which stole a magic ring, which will also be helpful for the Fort Dragonia section and onward. But not only that, like Handy mentioned, by hitting Lynx with the Pilfer, he immediately responded with Imbecile, even though he got put into crit health at the same time, so he's not going to Nostrum.
Funnily enough, Carbon was actually, he misjudged how much damage he needed to do. Actually, was kind of lucky because he got a crit on the first one, and it didn't put him into crit health after he did Pilfer. From the first swing from Surge, where a crit will actually do about the damage of like I think 2 3s. So if he would have just landed both the 3s regularly, I don't think he would have got put into crit health, which is not the worst thing in the world. It just means he would have had to work around using dash and slash to just straight skip Nostrum.
Yeah, a crit in Chrono Cross is a 2.0 multiplier for
Right.
regular crits. There is a concept called mini crits with certain weapons, but it's not relevant for this Link at Fort Dragonia run, so...
Yep, 55 Lynx 1 for Carbon, as Daffy says. Like, it is a really good time, especially for a race setting. But honestly, PH not too far behind. PH still on pace to do have a really good manner time. He's also started the turn where he pilfers. This is where you're going to see him swing the 3s with Surge. And they both got crits.
Oh.
Good judge. But he did get a high roll, so I wonder what he's going to do here. Might swing 3s with Pierre to refresh stamina.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so he's going to Imbecile here, which means that he didn't use that to overwrite the Nostrum flag. But all is not lost because he can push him in over here, and he'll probably use Dash and Slash. Yeah, Dash and Slash is going to skip Nostrum, even if it doesn't kill. Which it won't kill, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I have a feeling it was pretty close.
Yeah, Kid will kill if she hits both. Well, maybe not with the Ivory. Yeah.
Yeah, not with Ivory. I was gonna say.
So here's
That-
that
this-
other trigger.
Anti-white
element.
is his response to the dash and slash. So that's
Right.
the
So both, yeah, he's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is going to be a 57-0, like 15 or so for PH, which honestly, all things considered in a race and the things that with the Marcy fight, not bad at all. That
PH's
Marcy
Surge
fight
is-
actually, go ahead, sorry.
I said PH's Surge is only at 13 strength as well, which is a bit on the low side.
Ooh. Yeah,
For
that
sure.
13 strength is actually probably what prompted him misjudging the amount of damage he was going to do post Pilfer. So it didn't send him into crit. That actually makes sense.
Zan in chat also says that Carbon has a 14 strength Surge, so neither runner really having a very strong Surge this run.
We got some weak boy surges so far. Well, average I think is 15. So Carbon is like a little bit below that.
Yeah, 15 is average. Ideally, you'd want 16 even to really be comfortable with the strats, with some faster strats.
Yeah, you would never complain about higher. Higher the better.
The only time you complain about higher is when Surge then proceeds to miss every attack.
Right. Daffy in chat also brings up a good point. So PH had a 57 manner with bad stats, the Ivory Dagger, that fight from Marcy that got that steamrolled, like snowballed, and then also
not a
20
Marcy.
seconds, and then 20 seconds from missing guard skip. So that's really not bad at all.
On Carbon stream, Lynx said the thing,
The thing.
the Chrono
thing.
trigger.
We're also
Eaten.
So we're probably going to see Carbon do the forced menu that we were talking about, and it was probably not worth it just based on in hindsight now. Did not put the revive on but we will probably see PH take the advantage of the fact that he can just skip through the menu. So you're going to see a little bit of a difference between the two runners here.
And Carbon also removed the Iron Dagger from Kid because we will use the Iron Dagger to sell, I believe, for money.
Yes, money.
It is not a disassemble.
Which I don't know. Personally, I feel like money isn't as scary of an issue, of a potential issue with the Lynx 2 category than it is for an any percent run. I feel like you can kind of get around a couple ways of not. I've skipped the taking the Iron Dagger off Kid a couple times, and it's usually been okay to do that.
Yeah, where Carbon needs the extra money because he did get the guard skip, so that's one less guard fight, so he won't have as much money as PH, who had to do the extra guard fight. So being able to sell the Iron Dagger will be
Yummy.
relevant.
Let me tell you why Carbon's run is already worse. Because this is the second time that he's had to see Korcha in his run.
I know, man. I guarantee when this whole thing is said and done, and if the next time Carbon strings and we talk about this fight, he's definitely that's gonna be the first thing he's gonna say. He's probably a little tilted just from the beginning for the, it's colored the entire match for him now having Korcha at the beginning there.
Carbon says 3 out of 3 on Korcha races.
Yep.
No.
Okay.
Oh
so
no.
That's exactly what PH did. PH skipped that menu.
Yep.
Nadla in chat says Pierre route is the fastest out of the 3 to get out of manor. The answer to that is I don't know casually if you're not doing like speedrun strats if one of them's faster, but like in terms of like objectively like which one's the fastest way to do, yes, Pierre.
Oh no,
Because Pierre is a
dial. You have to go get Korcha, then you have to go around the bluffs, and you have to climb up that thing. And Nikki, you have to go through the forest, and you have to go through the tunnel, and you have to get one of those silly balls over to the monster so you can fight it.
Yeah, basically there's a kind of an extra mini dungeon involved with the other 2 options that will take up time. And while Nikki and Gal are better characters than Pierre, or more powerful characters than Pierre, stronger, it doesn't
faster.
really make. Usually between Kid and Surge, just kind of bouncing between just the 2 of them is enough to quickly get through the manor.
Right.
So
that was the only thing. I haven't played casually in a little bit, so I wasn't sure if because Pierre is a worse character. I wasn't sure if casually, like if you don't know exactly what you're doing, is having the worst character would make it a little bit slower. But
yeah, it's here. I mean, it really is just the one boss fight. Yeah, you have one guard fight and one boss fight, and you're in. Pretty much. Whereas the other 2, yeah, you've got the major boss fights with the other 2, but that's after you go through several. Yeah, especially because like you have to recruit Korcha just to do the Nikki fight. Anyway, so there's definitely a lot more storyline involved. Whereas with Pierre, it's like, oh, let's just go up, ask them nicely at the front gate,
I mean, speaking of character routes going on right now, both runners you're about to see. We're going to deny Kid or helping Kid a second time. And if you've played Chrono Cross, or looked at anything Chrono Cross related, you probably do know about this decision. We would much rather have Glenn on our team than Korcha. And so that's
Yes.
the route that we're going to take.
It's also legitimately a faster run. As we were talking about before, this is kind of an interesting split in the storyline where by choosing to save Kid, you are opting to do a whole extra kind of mini boss fight or section of the game that instead of the saying no to save Kid route, giving a different, similar boss fight, it literally just skips that. That's all that's happening. You're just kind of skipping that extra section of the story.
This game punishes you with Korcha for saving Kid. That's basically what it is.
No, but you get Rasley. Come on. Rasley. Yes, Overlord is saying Rasley is cute. Oh, but Glenn is, hard. Okay, there you go.
I've joked before that this category should actually just be named Bully Kid %. or just the runs in general, just because we go out of our way to not help Kid. Except in the any % good ending, we do.
At the very well,
At
no,
the
'cause
very,
you
very
don't.
end.
Well, there is a way to you talk to Kid. I don't know. We do skip a lot of Kid's storyline that would also be saving her too at the end. But yeah, at the very, very end, by picking the good ending, you do save her, I guess, ultimately. But every choice before the ending is definitely basically, if you're not sure with your routing, just don't save Kid. Like, ever. Don't do anything for Kid.
So additionally,
go with her. Don't.
Go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
I said don't go with her. Don't talk to her. Avoid her. Leave her to die.
Yeah, in terms of the route, coming up for both runners is actually one of the first bigger sections of menuing. Actually, I think like the biggest section of menuing for this category,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken. Where you'll see Carboner now. He's basically going through the part of the story to get Korcha's boat, even though we're not getting Korcha, and we are going to have to go do some shopping. We're going to buy most of our like the tablets that we need, most of the things that we're going to need to make our final push through, eventually through the fort and other places as well. They're going to go to the smith again. They're going to disassemble some of the stuff that we were talking. Like normally in real our full runs, money is an issue. But I think I've happened to notice that money is never really an issue in these Lynx 2% because you can skip buying like diminish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that any of them are going to have anything to worry about there. But they are going to be building better weapons for both Lena and Glenn. And then a big element menu.
Yep. And Surge, Lena, and Glenn will be our team of 3 for the rest of this Lynx at Fort Dragonia run. So once we have those 3 characters, that's who we're sticking with.
Right.
Yeah, you'll
And
kind of
so-
notice. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You'll kind of notice we haven't really gotten in. It's legitimately about 10 to 15 minutes of pure button mashing and exposition and that we're going through. This is kind of notoriously the least interesting part of the entire Chrono Cross. Really the any % category. It's kind of the least interesting part, just because it's just such a long slog of nothing interesting happening at all.
No,
Yeah, I
on
used to
the
name-
Carbon stream here, you can see that they're going in to see Stella here. Stella is like the most cantankerous person in this game. She's had to deal with diarrhea all this time.
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, God.
oh dog.
But I
my.
I actually did used to have this split name Resident Sleeper in my splits as well. It's just so long. It's just like you go through like all the exciting parts of like the boss rush at the end of the manor, and then you just have to spend 15 minutes on a date with Korcha, and it's just like I don't want to do this.
And on sadly, it's what's the word? Deceiving, because you can lose so much time, especially for newer runners, because you can feel like, oh, I'm just button mashing, like whatever. But like you still have to know when, because there's periodic moments between that button mashing that you have to take, 4 steps to the right to trigger the next thing. And if you're not paying attention, you could just be sitting there doing nothing, for 15 seconds before you realize, same here with that. With when Ma asks you if you want to board the boat, the default, or to be able to board the boat is the second option, so you don't want to button mash there. But yeah, it's very easy to lose time to this if you're not paying attention.
Zan in chat also brings up a good point. So we kind of explained earlier that what's coming up in terms of like the menuing. So without going into like the specifics of what their menus are going to be, another important thing is coming up in the run that's going to be dealt with RNG is that we're about to get both Glenn and Lena on our team, and they're going to I think Deeds mentioned that they're going to be our team going forward as well through the rest of the run. Their stats. Oh, it's Nish. Okay. Their stats really do matter, and so if chat wants to play another guessing game, you can guess between what Glenn's strength's going to be and what Lena's magic's going to be. Glenn's strength can be anywhere between 11 to I think like 20. I think someone said it could be 10. I've never seen a 10, but like at least like 11 to 20
I've
are in that
gotten
range.
10 actually several times.
That's low.
It's not fun at all.
Silver has
And-
a tendency to get bad stats on Lena and Glenn. It's kind of absurd.
It's ridiculous.
And additionally, Lena, her magic is going to be really important, which is why we pick up her instead of doing like the kid route. And her magic can be anywhere between, I think, like even 9, which is what she starts at, all the way up to like probably 15, 16, maybe a little bit higher. I don't know the exact amounts, but just that range. So Daffy actually brings up a good point. If you're making guesses in chat, is that PH left Lena at 12. That's pretty high. So if you want to keep that in mind when you're making your guesses.
How many stat-ups are in Viper Manor again? Is it 4?
Throughout the manor, or like including outside, like after you leave?
Yeah, once you leave Lena, yeah.
So you get the guards in front of the gate, so that's 1, catch up 2, the bulbs 3,
Oh,
Marcy
5.
4, 5, yeah, 5.
Another interesting note is that we've talked about star levels a couple times now for that's how stat progressions go. Interestingly enough, the way this game works with leveling characters is that every time you do a star fight, it actually tries to level every single character in the game, whether or not we've recruited them, whether we're going to recruit them, or anything. It just keeps track of all of their stats in the background
Right.
as we go through the game.
Oh,
So
with one exception, though. The one exception is if somebody is in your party and dies during the boss battle. They do
that's
not.
true.
It's hard out.
correct. Yeah, the only way for a character to not have a chance of getting a stat up is if they is like as Doc mentioned, if they are in your party and they are dead at the end of the fight. So you'll see for depending on stats of what these characters have, if they're a bit low on the low side and they really want to have a good chance of getting a stat up, they might take the extra time of reviving a character that is dead before the end of a fight just to give them a chance of getting a stat up. But if
But
a
we don't
character's
worry about
already
either.
super far, if a character's already super far ahead of where they're expected to be stat wise, they might just leave them dead because the one extra stat is nice but not as relevant as if they are behind.
Right. Carbon is actually about to come to the point to where we were talking about. What you're actually going to see, funnily enough, is even though we're going to be using Surge, Glenn, and Lena as our party going forward, what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to put Glenn on our team, and then we're going to put Macha on our team for like half a second. And it's just because if you've ever been to this part of the game and you've ever denied putting Macha in your party, you know that she has a sequence where she basically goes, oh, okay, that's fine, you can have the boat, walks over to that platform, jumps off, and swims all the way home. And it's a pretty long cutscene, so it's actually faster to put her in our party, and then immediately after we get out of this place, we just immediately throw Lena in our party.
I'm so nervous. What is Glenn's stat going to be? I mean, this doesn't determine the whole run, but it will definitely give us a window, you know, a glimpse into what the rest of the run is going to be like, essentially.
That is true. Because there are runs where, say that he gets Glenn at like 12, and you're like, that's so low. But then in the sections that we're going to go into before Glenn really all that matters, we have a couple of stars where he can hit +1 or +2s, and he can just really start beefing up. Now, is that
That's
likely?
recoverable.
Probably not, but it is a chance.
But it can happen. There is hope. There is.
The game does do a little bit of evening out too, because if you're low in
Ooh,
terms of your
15.
average, it is more likely that you'll get the strength up on the star than you would if you were
That is
average or
true.
higher. So
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, the game
50?
tends to converge to an average over the course of the whole game, where if you miss a stat up, the chance of you getting the stat up on the next star level actually goes up. Not by much. I think it's only like
Not by much at
1%.
all.
I think
Not
it's only
even
like
that, I
one. Yeah,
It-
I think it's dependent upon the stat and the character, but it does increase the chance by like roughly 1% or plus or minus every time
Yeah.
they
Anybody
miss
has the
one.
strength and the,
And then once they hit get the stat, then it goes back to whatever their base value is, I believe.
Amali in chat is the winner for Carbon, at least. He says
Yeah.
15-14. So let's see if we got a winner for PH as well.
This is an Ocarina of Time randomizer. We're not going to find the winner heart piece.
And this is while we're waiting for that stat. Actually, I'll wait till after this. After we
No, go
see
ahead.
what Glenn's magic is. No, because we're just coming across the halfway point here. I just wanted for anyone that joined into the stream halfway through, I just wanted to kind of go through. This is Lynx 2 against CarbonDrank and PH. I am Silver Deeds commentating, and everyone else can also reintroduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Handy.
I am Mad Refugee, aka Nish, as both Silver and Handy have addressed me as.
And that was the
Underdog
7. Did I see
Cobra.
a 17 strength on Glenn? Did
For
I see
PH?
that right? On PH, yeah.
I did not see. Oh,
Yep,
corp confirmed.
corp confirmed. 17 strength on Glenn.
Also, and Doc is with us as well, our pun master.
Yeah.
Is Duck.
So did I just hear that 17-14? Was that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Oh, Frozen got it. That's actually kind of crazy that we had people who at least guessed both for each runner. 17 Glenn is really high. That's a really good starting point. And so that's what I was gonna mention earlier. Is I used to actually was of the mindset that it wasn't that bad if I missed a stat, because you're right in that it does technically increase your percentages, right? But unfortunately, it's not, especially until you get to like later parts of the game, just because of the way that the math works out. It's actually not much at all. So it's almost always a negative to never get it, and because you want to get your early stats, right? Because like when you get an early one, it also doesn't decrease your chances very much to get the next one as well. So you kind of want to like hopefully snowball, if that makes sense.
Right, for sure. And also, these early sections of the game, the stats are pretty relevant for how fast it can make these fights go. I remember we were doing a community any percent race with 8 runners for the whole game, and Carbon actually had really, really, really bad stats, and like to the point where we didn't even really have strats worked out for how to handle stats that were that low, and just trying to, I guess, freeform his way through the fights of how to get through, specifically these upcoming fights. We're about to go through. Carbon's about to go through 2 boss fights back to back here.
Excuse you, there are 3. We were just able to run from one.
You are absolutely correct.
It's so funny that in the story, like if anybody's seen this part, like you just run from it, and then in the story, Fargo's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's cool," like, and then brings
Like,
out
oh,
Paul.
those are too weak for you. You know,
Yeah, he's
they're
even
not
like,
even worth your
"Oh."
time.
No, look at tough gang over here. Yeah, not worthy enough opponents for you.
So for this poly fight, the main thing that like you would probably want to know between knowing this is a good fight or a bad fight, besides just random misses, is if the runner can get off Ice Blast before we get flapped the first time. So poly has 18 AP starting with, so that you can roll a little bit higher than that. But since it's a boss, it can't roll a 0, but it can roll anywhere between 1 to like a bit above 18. And he got Ice Blast off, so that's a pretty good start. We'll see if he'll probably swing 3s here if he gets to go. Oh no, he's going for a 1. Oh, he's gonna go 1-3-3. That's a really good AP start. Oh, what? Okay, he's got a crazy AP start.
Oh man, it just keeps going. There we go. There's the flap.
He was getting to the upper echelon of AP
Oh, no.
starting. Where AP starts.
Polly was nice. It did not pick Lena for the flat.
That's
The other thing of
hand
note-
tiger, you know.
So we've talked about like stat ups for characters from star levels.
Good
The
fight.
other thing is that HP values are also random, and we can get increases to max HP from basically any fight, including just regular overworld mobs. So you'll see that even though the 2 runners are on the same fights, you can see that their HP max HP values are not the same. So that's another layer of RNG where if you just don't get a lot of max HP, characters can easily die to just what the enemies will do.
We never also really touched on it, and I did just kind of mention that I thought Carbon was going to go for a 3-3, so it might be a good, since we kind of explained Poly, and not much happens in Fargo, to explain like why you would throw 3-3s, like Carbon just did exactly. So we talked about action points or AP earlier, and so with that in mind, say that we know that like we've counted down like that Fargo goes after, I forget his exact AP at the moment in my head, but like say we know he's at 1 AP, meaning that he's going to go on his neck no matter what we do. We can use an element, we can defend, we can do a 1, we can do a 2, we can do a 3. Whatever we do, he's going after that, right? If we know he's going to go no matter what, like to squeeze out damage and the most amount of stamina refresh for our other party members, you obviously want to swing a 3, right? Because it effectively is the same thing as if you did a 1. The only addition to that is that in this game, if you're doing 2 attacks together, you can buffer 2 attacks. You can link them together so that they can't be interrupted. So if we know that an enemy is about to go, we can slam out 3 3s, or like 3-3 together, so that we maximize as much as we can the damage that we're doing per turn and the amount of refresh that we're giving our whole party.
Right, and that's the stamina pushing mechanic that I mentioned about an hour ago, but it wasn't super relevant. But yes, that is one of the advanced techniques, more advanced techniques for
Right.
being able to really optimize fights for the speedrun. It seems daunting at first, but once you understand what is actually happening, then it makes all the sense in the world.
Right. Yeah. So PH got through the Poly fight. Almost said the PH fight, and he's moving into the Fargo fight. Carbon is actually moving into the next section, where if one of you guys want to take over and explain the travesties that can happen inside the ghost ship.
Oh, the ghost ship. Yes, this is. I'll take it. Unless Doc, do you want to take it?
Sure, I'll take it. I'll try to be a little serious here. Okay. What happens is that the ghosts are attacking the ship, and you've got to first of all skirt around the ghosts, and then you need to get through this door to get to the top of the ship, but you need to have the key, and so you have to talk to the one guy while dodging ghosts, and they say, "Oh, I gave the key to one of 3 people." So then you have to fight and save each of the 3 people, and there's 3 possibilities because it's totally random. And so if the first fight, if you finish the first fight, that guy has a key. That's what we call first key. That's the best. Or maybe it's the second guy you rescue, or maybe the third guy you rescue. And so, yeah, that can save about like a minute or so, depending on which key you get, first, second, or third.
Exactly.
I think it's actually
yeah,
a bit more than a minute. It actually really adds up because the fights themselves are long, and once you get the key, you don't need to save any of the other
right.
crewmates. Once you have the key, you are done. You can go right to the door.
Not to interrupt, but I do want to bring attention to something that we're about to see Carbon doing. Carbon's about to attempt to do the ghost dance. Both runners are going to try to do it, and we're going to see if he can avoid this ghost kind of lingering around in this little small corridor while he's trying to talk to this guy twice. You can see what he's doing, and he has done it. So he kind of made that look like really clean, which is, props to him as a runner. It is something that a lot of runners can struggle with doing consistently.
It is not that easy in real life.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you ever actually run the any % run, there's an even harder version of this toward the end of the game called the fish dance. Even harder than the ghost dance.
Daffy called out in chat that PH got a +2 strength on Surge in the Fargo fight, which is super nice.
Yep.
Going back to the ghost dance that Carbon just did, the reason why we do that is because we need to talk to that guy, like Doc said, to basically for him to tell us, hey, I'm on key duty, but I don't actually have the key, I gave it to somebody else. We actually need to go through that dialogue, and we need to get through the whole dialogue for the key to even pop up in one of the 3 crewmates. If we leave the area too soon, we can get what's called 4th key, which is basically none of the 3 guys that we save have it, and we have to do an extra step, and that's just not good. So
We call that one the key of shame because that's not RNG. That means that's
You,
whenever it's
that's
human
on you.
error. Yeah. So Carbon actually didn't get first key, and you're gonna see why time can start adding up, is because now it really depends. Like if you have a really strong surge, and you don't miss, it can actually not be that bad or whatever. Which actually kind of brings to the point of like why having good stats is a really nice thing, because Chrono Cross has a tendency to like be kind of cruel sometimes in its RNG, and so the better your stats are, the more it kind of mitigates the, like you have a chance of mitigating a lot of the issues.
To me, it's a big deal in
Hey, do you mean a
speedrunning this
fireball?
game when you're able to clear all the mobs with one character with 7 stamina. Like that is going to be your fastest way through a fight. And if your stats are too low, you're just not going to be able to do that, and you will be losing extra time just from, because when you notice these battles take extra time because your character has to run up to the mob, you have to select it, and then if in the middle of your attacks the mob gets to attack, the boss gets to attack, then there's another animation of you watching your character run back up to the boss just to attack again. So lots of potential time loss that you don't really pay attention to that can add up, without you realizing.
Carbon got second key.
yep,
Nice.
Carbon did get second key. So he
Additionally,
does not have to
PH
go for the third one and can just go right on ahead.
And additionally, PH successfully did get Ghost Dance as well, so both of our runners successfully did it. Claps to them. So PH is really, like, it'd be a really big benefit for PH here if he did get first key. He would secure a little bit of time back, getting ready to go into Mount Pyre and almost in the manor, the fort. Carbon having a Carbon having a good ghost, not ghost dance, ghost ship escape. He scared me a little bit there. He hesitated.
Yeah, that's a scary spot, honestly, because it's not consistent when those two heads will dash. Well, I mean, it's a little bit, but like, depending on how you load up.
PH
Did he
did
get
not
it?
get
First key. Nope.
Oh no.
He also got baited from getting the vent dialogue before the. Sorry, I don't have the key.
Yeah, if you're standing, what is it? If you're like on the right side of him is when he'll refer to the vent as well. So it does matter where in the room you talk to that NPC.
I actually didn't know that either.
I
thought
actually
it was
didn't
a
know that
random
either.
It could be. I forget like specifically which. It is directional based. I just forget which direction.
I mean, it would make sense.
Get hero rolled on that fight on the ship there. Like all you had to do was run away, but I think they were attacking him first too. So.
Oh, PH getting buried.
PH
No,
third key.
third
Oh,
key.
no.
Yeah, and this can just happen. I mean, it's not over for PH. There is a lot that can go wrong and right in the Mount Pyre section and the fort section. So PH is not out of it. It just is really unfortunate because I believe he's on the weaker side of stats from Carbon. He's already a little bit behind, and he's going to have to do an extra fight from not getting for getting one later key.
Now PH had the better stats when getting the characters back, but they both had some good stat growth from both the Fargo and Poly fights. So it's evened out a bit in that regard, but still the fact that PH was behind a little bit and now is getting third key, and that's just nothing that you can do when it comes to running this game. It's just RNG causing you to lose like an extra minute or two through no fault of your own, which sucks.
As you can imagine, watching this is whenever you're now, like if you're learning the game or you're just getting to the game, this is not really a reset point. But as you start going for like better and better times, this is a very big reset point sometimes for a lot of runs. But it's good news for Carbon in the race. Carbon is pulling his lead on the other hand, and he's fighting Deadhead right now, as you can see, and he's going to the first turn where he's strengthening and eagle-eyeing Surge. So that Surge is basically going to be the powerhouse for this fight. Going to swing threes, stamina push him, and should be a quick fight.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about strategy for the fight. So now that we're in this second half of the Lynx at Fort Dragonia run, our fights more or less will follow a similar strategy, and this actually will would more or less continue for an entire run of the game, where we basically have one character that's super beefed up on stats and equipment, and then we use the other two characters as supports to buff them up beforehand and then just have that specific character do most of the work. Right now it's Surge. Going into Mount Pyre, it's going to be Glenn that's going to be doing a lot of our heavy lifting, and then once we're actually in the Fort Dragonia section, it's actually going to be Lena that is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Right, and to add on to that, we just saw that if you were paying attention, you saw that Lena and Glenn both actually use Strength and Eagle Eye on their level 1 allocated slot. And the reason for that is, this fun fact, and the speedrun takes advantage of that, is that buff elements and debuff elements actually aren't punished or like changed depending on where you have them in your slots. So putting them on that level 1 gives you the same amount of strength, it gives you the same amount of AP, or like for how long it lasts. Everything is the exact same no matter where you put it at. But if you have a damaging element like Aqua Ball, Ice Blast, Fireball, or whatever, it does matter where you have them. It does increase them where you put them on in the slots.
Just going off of that and what somebody was saying in the chat about Eagle Eye being busted, it is, except for we have seen those 99% misses.
Yep.
Yeah, the 1% chance of missing, which honestly, we've kind of talked about this before. Like, the stats could be a little misleading. Like, it's 99% chance of hitting, feels like you'll always hit, but you know, throughout a 7-hour run, I mean, you're doing hundreds, if not thousands, of attacks, right? And so statistically, like, you will be missing, you know, and there
Right.
will be that you will have a run with that 1% that Eagle Eye miss, just from the fact that if you're running this a lot, you're using Eagle Eye, you know, hundreds of times. So
Right.
There is no 100% accuracy for physical attacks. The only thing that is 100% accurate is elements.
That is true. Carbon
although,
also...
like, debuff elements can still miss whether or not the element hits or not, but
Right. Carbon went and made the stop, picked up Magnify, which we're going to need in this section, and he's heading towards the next and best, I would argue, Salt and Pepper tutorial fight.
This is the
If
best
you've been here
fight.
if
What are
you've
you
been here
talking
before,
about?
what?
What?
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, if you've been here before for these races, you know what letter you need to prepare.
Oh, I have mine ready to go.
We'll get there soon
So-
enough.
So kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier about how their strategy is picking a character, buffing them up, and having the other two as supports. The reason why we were doing Surge on the Ghost Ship is because a lot of those enemies were undead, and they were innate element black. In Chrono Cross and like a lot of RPGs, there is a elemental affinity system where like certain elements are strong against each other, you know, red and blue, green and yellow, and then white and black. So we use Surge on the Ghost Ship because he's innate element white and a lot of the undead enemies are innate element black. So he'll do extra damage to the undead enemies. But coming up into this section, that's not as relevant except for on Salt here, who is innate yellow, whereas Glenn is innate green, so Glenn will by default do extra damage to Salt, and also on Zoa, who will be at the end of this Fort Dragonia, or at the end of this Mount Pyre section. The other fights, it's not as relevant, but just having that extra bit of damage is nice, and also the fact that, generally speaking, Glenn most of the time will have similar or slightly higher strength than Surge at this
Yeah,
point.
this is the longest single...
W's in the chat.
The W's in the chat. This is the like longest single text box where Pepper's just so dumbfounded by what he's heard from Salt that he's like, what? And then beats him up.
Yeah, this is your trap element tutorial. So you got to remember, if you actually do use trap elements in the game, you can't actually use the elements you trap until after the battle. It's just kind of...
I know, it's a shame
Right.
that we don't really get to take advantage of trapping elements for the speed run. I think I've heard of some strategies, and maybe Carbon throwing around some fun, you know, little fake strategies around trapping some stuff, but it's not
Right.
really a thing we use in the speed run, so you don't have to really worry about that. but an interesting, unique battle, mechanic that this game has that you don't really see anywhere else.
We should also touch on, so we talked about earlier like that there is a second gauntlet that you can get that can be useful for the run, and that actually happens to be in this fight is probably like the most condensed like area or condensed fight of like good drops from RNG that you can get. There's a 10% drop from each salt and pepper that you can get a Skygen ring, or you can get a Dragoon Gauntlet, and you can get both, and a Dragoon Gauntlet,
Yeah,
another
that's
Dragoon Gauntlet. And you're about to see if he gets them. Most likely he'll get the regular drops, but it's 10% for each of them. Skygen is a +2 on magic, which will be good for Lena, and the Dragoon Gauntlet is a +3 on strength, which will have 2. Oh, he got
Skygen.
Carbon
Skygen.
got a Skygen.
He did get the Skygen. That is Pog for his Lena. I actually don't know what his Lena's magic is, but
Both of the runners' Lenas are actually both good. I saw them both at least 16, which is
that's
actually
really
where you want Lena to be for a fight coming up in about 5 boss fights or so. Is where you want her to be for the strategy to work ideally. So both of the Lenas are good to go. We don't really care much about their magic ups, except for there is an alternate strategy where we can do a quick menu to make one fight in particular go faster, and we'll probably see Carbon do it because I know
Right.
Carbon really likes this strategy, and we can talk about it when we get there.
also, just to touch on it, I won't go into specifics for it, but the Fire Dragon is coming up, and this is one of those fights that, like, if you're learning the run, that people will tell you to practice because it can go very badly. Just to kind of touch, like, quickly on, like, one thing to look up that's coming up right now is
Varsity
you'll know
2.0.
Carbon is not going to be happy if he gets one rolled. So if he gets interrupted after the first one roll, just know that it's going to be probably a rough Fire Dragon fight, or at least not one that he wants.
Yeah,
And
Fire Dragon is very fast. He only has 6 AP, so the chances
Right.
of him going early is pretty high.
oh, he did
And
get
yeah,
one rolled.
we did get one rolled.
No.
Okay, so Carbon is good enough that he will figure his way through this, but just know that we've actually been talking about recently, like, what's the best thing to do? Do you skip, like, do you just swing early, which he might do, or do you hope for a +1? It's just like, because we don't have a for sure set out route for if you get one rolled. It can just go very badly. Thankfully, he has decent stats, so it's not as bad as it could be. It also will depend on, yeah, it'll also depend on who he targets. He being Fire Drake. Oh, okay, I thought he went for Lena.
Oh, W's in the
Up
chat
in the
again
chat,
for
PH.
PH.
Oh,
Yeah, you saw Carbon actually use the Cure Plus on Surge because he got attacked first, and could have pretty easily killed Surge if he happened to roll high on the Fiery
Ooh.
Breath. Ooh, it was a good crit.
Yeah,
Definitely in a
got nice
race
grip.
setting, I would say, because you don't see us use Cure that often. You did see Lena curing the Deadhead boss because of the classic JRPG, undead monsters take damage from healing items. But this is one of the fights. There's actually a couple fights in here where using Cure is actually kind of the smart way to go. And with Fire Dragon, I feel like a safe way to get through this if you do get one AP roll is to just kind of be safe, use Cure. We kind of mentioned before, you can run away from all the fights, but the Fire Dragon's kind of one of those random exceptions to the rule where you actually have to run away twice. He won't let you do the menu the first time you run away. You have to run away from him twice in order to menu and heal up. So that's a lot of time lost there in that case. So
Right.
being safe like that, using cures, and that still puts blue elements on your field effect, so that it's still good when you're trying to use blue to attack for strengthening those. So it's not entirely a bad strategy to cure.
This is why I
I
can
will-
never be a speedrunner though, because I would have had to heal Surge there when he had 11 points. After the Fire Dragon hit him, he had 11 hit points. I was like,
yeah, like you just kind of know about like what you have left to do eventually, and so you know like what's actually safe. And he knew Fire Dragon's not going to get another turn, so he probably felt pretty safe after Surge did live that. But if you're someone who just got here for the run, I do want to mention you got here for something that's like the most, I think, exciting part of this category, and it's the fact that since like Deadhead or whatever, like we've basically been in I would say probably Mount Pyre is like hard boss rush mode through the rest of the
Hard,
fort.
yeah. Mount Pyre is really difficult. I personally feel like Mount Pyre is more of a rip run in some cases than the Fort Dragonia a little bit. I mean,
Right.
that's probably not completely true, but I feel like I've had worse luck in Mount Pyre than I have in Mount Fort Dragonia. And I think that might be tied closer to stats, because if you do get lower Glenn and Lena, you're gonna feel that in Mount Pyre, whereas, you know, bad stats, usually you have all of Mount Pyre to level up those stats to get to Fort Dragonia. So.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see
probably-
exactly how Carbon's fight started in this fight, but getting low AP rolled on the first turn from especially Zoa can make the fight go not very well, or not very great. I
He
didn't see
also
when
had
Zoa
Glenn
went.
He also had Glenn miss a
Oh.
1, unfortunately. But
Yeah, that
the
makes sense.
the fight that Carbon's in is actually interesting because each of the 3 characters that he's going up against has their own AP, and so trying to keep track of that can be basically a nightmare. And
I don't.
I don't bother. It's too much.
I
It's too much
just
mental
deal
math.
with it.
You just deal with when they interrupt you and whatnot.
I think the
See-
big one that is to keep track of like their kind of specialty. So like Zoa's Geronimo, the Dragon Rider, you know, things like that. It might be worth a little bit to know when they go, but you don't have to worry about it as a beginning speedrunner.
That is
EH
true.
also unfortunately got low rolled on the Fire Dragon. I don't think he got 1 rolled, but it was a very low roll.
If it's a 2 roll, we at least have like a strat, because PH is actually using like my notes. He helped me basically test out my notes, so we both use them. But we have in our notes, I think most notes actually have a 2 roll strategy. It's just no notes that I've seen have a specific 1 roll strategy.
Carbon's notes actually do have a
Oh, okay.
1 roll strategy, but I don't know how. I don't remember. I feel like there is kind of a scenario where those notes don't work, but for the most part, I do. As we kind of did see, Carbon kind of get through that pretty well. But yeah, his notes, his version of the notes does have a 1.
Okay. Yeah, it is just one of those fights where like I can imagine it sometimes just doesn't work even with the 1 roll, like what you were saying. It's just because there are some cases in Chrono Cross where like if something happens, like your best option is not a good option. It's just a way to mitigate the worst scenario,
Yes.
hopefully.
As far as in terms of speed, anyway. I mean, if we weren't speed running
PH.
this, he wouldn't be so bad. No,
Oh.
C6.
Carbon is heading into the fort. I guess this is actually a good place to touch on. This is where Lena's magic starts becoming, I guess for Fire Dragon is important as well, but this is where for the rest of like the entirety of the fort almost, Lena's magic really, really matters. So the reason we picked up Lena and we wanted Lena and we went through the whole trouble of like denying Kid like 20 minutes into the game is all for this. Because after we fight this Dragoon, he's going to drop a summon element called Frog Prince. And you need a blue innate magic user. Well, you just need a blue innate user, but Lena being a magic user really, really helps.
Yeah, Pierre's
she's
not
going-
going to cut it here.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
And she's gonna basically the rest of our strategies through these fights as a concept are gonna be a way to like buff Lena, and instead of using like strengthen and Eagle Eye, we're gonna use like genius or weak mind and stuff like that. Then fill the whole field blue, and get Frog Prince off. And the whole like skill part of the game, or the run at this point, is understanding APs and understanding how to fit in getting the whole field blue with your buff elements on to get Frog Prince off before you get interrupted.
And I think we were talking earlier about, you know, the Pierre route, and if you say no to Kid not getting Lena, and there's it's never really been tested, but I think the theory is if you did say yes to Kid and you didn't want to reset, you'd go the Nikki route because he's a blue innate and you could still theoretically use the Frog Prince strats with Nikki, but I don't think his magic is as high to guarantee that those will work. So
I'm not 100% sure. Exactly.
that would be my guess. If that would be my gut instinct. If I was in like a race setting and resetting with saying yes to Kid, really just don't say yes to Kid. But
Just don't say. If you say yes to Kid, that is rip run. And let me tell you, in a race setting or like even in the relay setting, I was irrationally. That was one of my irrational fears. Is I was like, oh my god, just please. I was so nervous about like accidentally saying yes to Kid.
yeah.
Now,
But-
in the Save Kid route, you actually get the Frog Prince from the Blue Dragon in the other world when you go back. You actually get the Frog Prince a little earlier there.
Right.
Carbon
Yeah,
actually
it's
has a 18 magic Lena with both a Skygen ring and magic ring, so
Yeah, she's pretty beefy.
pretty beefy.
She,
He might be able to even maybe skip a couple. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he alters any strategies to, and just rely on getting the Frog Prince off if her magic is that good.
we've been keeping up with Carbon. Carbon's actually heading into the first puzzle or the first pillar of this this fort. But over on PH's side, PH is making his way through Mount Pyre. He's in the last section. He's about to be into the fort as well.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, he's honest. It's still anyone's game at this point. I feel like PH isn't that far behind, and if Carbon gets some bad luck on some of these bosses in Fort Dragonia, PH still has several opportunities to pull ahead. If that happens.
Carbon with a little bit of suboptimal movement had to turn around for the first bat, which made him have to turn around for the second bat as well. So
Right.
Yep.
Bats. All the bats are
tiny
on a
little
cycle.
things.
Bats.
Bats are the worst enemy in this game.
I've seen
try
many a
dodge.
casual, on an unrelated note from the speedrun, I've seen many a casual runner be so stuck on this puzzle. Or not runner,
Yeah.
sorry, player. I've seen so many casual players be like, what do I do here? Because I don't think a lot of casual players realize that when you hit select to change your party order, it just kind of shuffles through them, right? Some people don't even know that. And this blue little portal thing that they step on actually just switches places of your
Oh no.
front and second character.
Okay.
PH also entering in.
Yeah, I think the only way, like, you basically have to have the official game booklet that comes with, like, the physical set that will tell you all of the, controller options. I mean, because I also didn't know for the longest time that, like, L1, for example, or R1, was also a confirm button, so you can say it really helps with button mashing when you're able to alternate the X out. Same with, what is it, L3? Is also can be confirmed.
L3, R1, and X are all confirmed. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So things like that, and knowing that the select button will change your party leader. You really just need that booklet for the game. The radius tutorial. Like, so in the very beginning village, you can fight Radius to like learn several tutorial related stuff, but they don't really tell you that information. So yeah, getting to this I think it's a little mean of this game to like I think it's a cool puzzle I think it's a really awesome designed puzzle by itself, but because it never outright explains party order ever. It is a little mean for casual players to try and figure this out.
You're definitely not wrong. There's a reason why it's a common, like a shared experience between a lot of like casual players I've seen. Like it's not just like one or two get caught up by it. It seems to be like a pretty unanimous thing. They're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. PH clearing the Dragoon, also about to get Frog Prince, while Carbon is heading into probably one of the worst bats in this game. Bats in general are painful.
This is every runner's favorite room.
That bat right there is, you might look like, oh hey, it might look like he's like really far away, but he's actually cutting it really close. That bat right there has a large like hot zone of like that he'll lunge at you from, and it's not like the other bats where like you are free to move until they actually touch you. Like if you walk into his zone, he'll lunge at you and you can't, like, it just like freezes you in place and you just get lunged at.
Also, his hitbox is actually an invisible shadow of where it basically where you think his shadow should be. So he's like flying super high in the air, but his hitbox is actually like very, very deceptive about when he'll aggro to use. It's that bat's a jerk.
Yeah, I agree. Carbon coming up on the first fight that we were talking about, where we're actually going to see Frog Prince get used. So that's exciting. We get to see our first summon of the run.
And everyone is supposed to dance along with the Frog Prince when you summon him.
That is true. Deeds did tell me she would ban everybody in chat who doesn't dance with Frog Prince.
This is actually the easiest battle to use Frog Prince in, because the GUI, whatever it is, also uses blue elements, so they will put blue elements on the field as well as you are, so then it's easy to get the field all blue.
Yep.
That
So
is
how
true.
nice of Bloop to let us summon Frog Prince without doing any work.
What Doc said is actually a very good point, because coming up, and especially in the next fight after this, we are going to fight an enemy that interrupts with green elements, which 100% throws off the fact that we need a full blue field. Most runners, like, if this fight can go slowly, which you don't want as a runner, but it's pretty safe in that you almost will always be able to get Frog Prince off, because after take in, and I think after, if you defend all, he'll do a physical attack, but he eventually, on his next attack, will do something called blue field, which, funnily enough, is exactly what we need to be able to just be like, okay, I'm Frog Princing now.
Yeah, if you mess up your turn order, or like you forgot to strengthen Lena or something like that, you can count on that blue field to, erase all of your mistakes.
Here's the first Frog Prince of the run, and with Carvin's insane statted Lena, Gloop is toast.
I danced along. Do you all dance along?
Yes, I did.
Of course I did.
I didn't do the sound effects. I'll have to do that next time. I didn't want to do weird sound effects over Nish's commentary.
Carbon did get the fast Gloop start where he was able to get the Magnify off before Gloop went, so that was one less blue element that needed to get put onto the field before being able to Frog Prince.
Well, so I don't actually know. I'm trying to remember how other people's strats go, but I think like the very fast strat is if you not only after Magnify, is if you get Genius off with Surge.
Oh, for
onto,
sure.
Yeah. So that basically what that does is, so normally like what usually happens, because it's such a high AP roll, is the Giant Gloop will do a blue element, and normally that can be useful to you. It means you don't have to use a blue element. But you have to also Magnify and Genius for your damage to be enough, so you basically don't get the benefit of that. But if you get a really good start and you're able to Magnify and Genius first, then you can use the fact that the boss using a blue element actually helps you, further your progression in
Yeah, you
the
can
strat.
skip an attack. Yeah, you can skip an element. Yeah, which is some time save there.
I wonder if Carbon's gonna go for the Cybot skip. So I was talking earlier about a
Don't
skip
do
that
it.
like how guard skip is something that like
Uh-oh.
is risk to reward is pretty high. Like your risk is not that high and your reward is really nice. This is the opposite. He's doing. Oh, he didn't go for it. He's doing
He
this.
tried.
Yeah, and if you get it, you save like, I don't know. I don't want to make up a number because I don't ever go for it, but like I would say 10 seconds max. But if you fail it, you're trapped in the corner with that enemy, and you have to fight your way out. And it's a loss of like a minute and a half, easy, for like 10 seconds. And it's like, I don't want to over exaggerate, but I believe it's like almost pixel perfect, or is pixel perfect.
I believe it is pixel perfect. They're trying to, with a setup on the wall, I believe they're trying to find. Oh, Carbon got trolled by this enemy here. These enemies in this room here will go in and out of stealth, where when they're stealth, you can pass right through them and you will not trigger an encounter with them. And that's really the only way to get through them, because these pathways are pretty narrow. But they can go invisible and reappear almost at will.
At random. Yep.
Yeah, so they can troll you, which is what happened. And they also have a tendency to zero roll you, and they will quite often zero roll with a long element called Paper Moon.
So bad. So annoying when that happens.
We're actually
Because you're
coming
already
up
angry
on.
you hit it. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going off on the paper. That's all.
I was gonna say we're actually coming up on like what is one of like along with Fire Dragon and actually two of the ones only in
I
That
know.
was
Yeah.
a troll.
right.
Carbon even played it safe, because that enemy is down there in the corner and is completely off camera, and
Yeah.
you can easily just run into that one just from them not being able to see them, period. The Carbon even
But-
played it safe, but then got trolled.
Yeah, these are two bosses, like Fire Dragon and Taurusoid are the two of the bosses in the Lynx at Fort Dragonia route that you basically need a lot of practice usually for your runners. And it's because Taurusoid is an enemy, like I said, that doesn't actually use a blue element and can interrupt
no.
you.
Just say Goopy Goop froze Lena. So
Oh,
Oh,
now-
okay. Yeah, you just have to Mediciner. But Taurusoid has 11 AP, and so what you're gonna see is after we get everything set up, and like we see like 2 turns from Taurusoid. Oh, that's a low roll.
we got
Okay,
that
luckily
low
he
roll.
attacked. he attacks Surge. But after he does 2 attacks, you're gonna see a long thing where in between his 11 AP, we do a full setup where we magnify, we turn the whole field blue, and we basically Frog Prince that way. A lot of misses can really make that fight go badly. And say if like you get low rolled like that, a lot of new runners won't know how to fix, getting everything done.
Yeah. I will say though that this Tarasoid fight with his 11 AP, if you are one for learning this route, this is definitely a good one to learn basically what the speedrun notes are saying and what is actually happening, just to basically see, like, look how much stuff we can do in between when Tarasoid can and can't go. It's a very good thing to practice to learn the nuances of the combat system.
A good study site.
Yeah, because what you'll see a lot of, like, the big mistake a lot of new runners will do is they'll start, because they're not counting AP, they'll start throwing all these blues on the field and not realize that when they started it, there was just no way they were ever going to get through it, right? And so what they end up doing is they end up using all their blue elements just to get interrupted before they do Frog Prince. And what that does, that means now you have to run away and you have to reset the fight. So it's just like 2 minutes down the drain easy. But not Carbon. Carbon got it off easily. Got a Frog Prince even with that little...
Even with the miss in there.
Right.
That 11 AP is pretty high. Lets us
Now,
do a lot of
Carbon
things.
put his Frog Prince at -2. Is that normal here, or is
That
it
is.
that low because of his high magic?
No,
that's
so
normal.
that's normal because at the time we get Frog Prince, we do not have access to the level 6 element slot. It's only... I forget after which fight it is that we get access to the level 6 element
It's before
slot.
Bunyip.
It's here actually. So Carbon actually kind of has his strat that he puts in his notes, a more advanced strat, where he will put. Oh, it's not here. It's after this. Where he will switch it to level 6, and it just depends on where your magic is at with Lena, and where your strength at is with Glenn, I think, and how well you've done the other fights. I actually think Carbon's trying to push that strategy a little bit to be more normalized.
PH did run into Cybot, lost like 20 seconds, but luckily he wasn't in the corner, so he was just able to get
Another run.
Yeah, so
so
PH is also going to be trying to dodge all these Paper Moon annoying dudes, but go ahead.
Yeah. Carbon's coming up on the next section where it's just one more brief puzzle, and then, as was lovingly referred to in last week's run, the nightmare-inducing boss coming up
Oh,
soon.
right. Yeah. Corporate Image has coined the term the Nightmare Fuel Boss. This
You know, if
this
you want to
boss...
see a fight with just all these little paper things that are going around, I mean, there's a whole channel dedicated to that. It's on pay-per-view.
Oh no.
Oh, no. I will add that, so I've mentioned that like the last 2 or 3 bosses or whatever have all been fights that you can lose a lot of time on. That doesn't stop here. I won't go into too much detail about this one, just to not take up all the time talking. But I will say that you'll know if the runners here in this next fight get a good or a bad start where they lose potentially like 30 seconds or don't. Whether or not you see Surge run up and do a 1-1, and you also see Lena when she goes to swing her 3s, if she hits at least one of them, without the son of a gun going first.
Yep. Yeah, so Son of a Gun coming up here is not necessarily a scary boss for getting a game over. He's a scary boss for time loss.
Exactly.
Where if you don't get the good start, he has the potential to use an element called Kissy Wissy, which if it hits has a chance to put the character that it hits to sleep, so you have to cure them. But that takes time, and so then you have to wait again to see before you can set up to do the Frog Prince. And in that time he can then do something else to really mess with you, and it's just
It can be a very annoying fight.
It's a lot of variance for time loss, not necessarily for losing the fight.
Yeah, I feel like what makes it so annoying is the fact that when it goes well and you get the AP start that you want, it's such a fast fight. So when it doesn't, like, the fact that, like, once you get a really good son of a gun split, like, you're not gonna get that split. You're gonna lose so much time when it goes wrong. I think
got
that's what makes it so annoying.
Carbon got the perfect start. He hit all 5 for Lena to get her to level 5. Now he's just gonna. You're gonna be like, you're probably wondering why is he turning blue the sun if you're about to use a blue element on him. And the reason is because he's actually about to do another turn blue. And if you didn't know, doing double turn elements reverts it back. And these are just fast elements that turn the field blue.
And the son of a gun enemy actually has very low HP. He only has 386, I believe.
83, but yeah.
383 HP, so... And as you can see, even with 2 blue elements on the field and Surge doing an Aqua Ball, it only did 3 damage.
This might do like 400 and something because Lena's really good and he has a Skygen and a Mud.
Yeah, so this is assuredly going to...
Oh, 450, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Kill the son of a gun, so that wasn't any bit of worry, but yeah, the turn blue elements are just very fast animations.
Sorry, that
Frog
was my interpretation of the.
The Frog Prince dance?
Oh, the sun died.
Or the sun dying. PH is through Tarasoid, and that Frog Prince on Tarasoid was beefy. I think it was 1184. Yeah,
I just actually-
PH's Lena is also super strong.
We noticed that at the same time. I was about to mention that I just saw that Lena on PH's stream is stacked.
Yeah, they're both of the Lenas are super stacked this run.
And then having the magic Skygen ring and the magic ring, man,
Yep.
makes things go pretty well.
Coming up, in terms of like another enemy on the world map that is dodgeable, but is very easy to also hit, is a Dragoon. There's gonna be a Dragoon coming up on the stairs for Carbon that, depending on where he spawns at naturally, sometimes you can actually just squeeze by him by going like close to the wall or the opposite side of him. But most of the time that's not the case, and what'll end up happening is you have to kind of do like a little setup to where you like lure him down to the bigger open up area section and try to squeeze around him that way. Oh, he's actually luring the guard back because that bat was in a bad area.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You might even say he was in a bat area.
I almost made that joke.
Ah.
Oh, look, he got the good spawn. Yep, there we go.
Yep, Carbon was able to run right past the Dragoon. So the fight Carbon's coming up on is Bunyip, and interestingly enough, there's not many bosses in this game that are multiple phases, but the ones that are, we've talked before about how bosses have an AP value. Bosses with multiple phases actually have separate AP that get tracked throughout the fight. So even though bosses themselves can't zero roll you, a boss after a phase transition can zero roll you if it just so happens to line up. And Bunyip is actually a little bit scary if he gets to go super early, because if you don't push Bunyip into the next phase fast enough, he'll then use an element called Inferno, which does a ton of damage. And as part of our strategy, if you're not paying attention and you magnify, which Carbon's about to do here, that Inferno, because Magnify increases all element damage, it'll also increase enemies' element damage, and that Inferno will do a ton of damage and can just wipe you and cause a game over. So it's definitely a fight that you want to pay attention to. But Carbon's gone into the next phase here.
So the thing you want to see from Carbon, if you are Carbon, is you do not want to get zero rolled here. Because even though this is a boss, okay, he didn't get it. But even though this is a boss, because it's a second phase, he actually can break the rule of not bosses only being able to one roll at the very least.
Oh, it's so this run always goes so fast to me. Like, the fact that we're almost done with this run, it's like, oh, it's really 2 hours have gone by already.
Right, we're in the final 3 fights.
Yep, there are Carbon after this fight. Carbon will have 2 fights left before the end of this category.
PH also, I think, got the slow start here, so we're gonna see Kissy Wissy.
Oh
on
no!
PH's tree. Kissy Wissy and mode change. That's why it's kind of slow. Because you lose the time from this Kissy Wissy. Hopefully it misses. It did not miss. So there is a strat for this. Because Glenn normally is one that has our Panacea. But we do have a strat for this.
Yeah, so normally we would turn blue, son of a gun, to then immediately turn him blue back, but instead Surge is going to turn blue Lena so that because Glenn has the other turn blue, we won't be able to turn him back.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Also scary for AP. I mean, if you
We
kind of
need
do the
to
math,
miss.
you...
Woo.
Oh.
Yeah, it was real
Alright,
close.
the backup worked.
Whew.
And this should also assuredly kill because both the Lenas have definitely, I guess it's not
They did not.
Wheaties. They
Yeah,
did their homework. They did their homework.
I didn't see what Glenn's strength was going up to the top of the tower from Carbon right now, but that was the last Frog Prince we're gonna see for Carbon's
Hopefully.
sake on Carbon's side, yeah. And then now, basically,
Oh.
Glenn is gonna be our main damage dealer for this next fight.
Carbon with some professional dodging.
Yeah, the bat guard, you know, pincer attack. Sometimes I feel like the guard will be like just at the perfect spot so that like you can dodge that, and then like and if you're not paying attention to the bat, it'll just get you.
Kagura Rayon in chat. Why did they have to make Sun look like that? Good question.
That is a good question.
Why indeed? Especially if you're gonna make a pun like son of a gun, like I don't know. I feel like there's aesthetically like maybe a sun. I don't know. Yeah, definitely a weird design choice there. We noticed so before this cutscene again because this part of the game is exactly the dream sequence. We're a little deja vu here with PH. You know, it feels like the exact beginning of the run, but it's very easy.
At least they
on
didn't
that...
force Portia into Carbon's party. That would be.
Oh my god! If you had to like do exactly the beginning. Whew. But yeah, it's so easy because at the beginning, during the dream sequence, there's extra dialogue when you go up that teleporter with Kid. But that you notice that dialogue didn't happen. It skips over to like a cutscene once you move forward. So it's very easy because you get so used to resetting and so used to doing the dream sequence of button mashing through the dialogue after the teleport that if you go up that teleport here in actual Fort Dragonia, you will just button mash and you will go back down the teleport, and then you have to take another teleport of shame back up to the top.
There's the key of shame, and then there's the teleport of shame. So Carbon right now, setting up to hopefully have a quick fight. I think his Glen is decent for Viper, while PH is getting ready to move into the Bunyip fight. Both runners are like honestly, with as much variance as there has been, PH is one fight behind right now. So not much, like in the grand scheme of things.
Carbon did not get the G4 skip, which in all fairness is very difficult. It's RNG dependent about when Viper decides to attack and your stats and a bunch of other stuff. So not a common thing, but it is something to look out for.
Yeah, it's really nice when you get to skip that, because then you can just plow right through into the actual Lynx fight and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, this Sonic Sword, I believe will for sure finish. While this Ice Blast is gonna send PH into the second phase, where we're gonna hope to also see. I'm not gonna even say it because PH has had enough bad luck.
PH is getting a bit bullied by Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
PH is getting Chrono Crossed.
Yep. He's a little bit like PH. There's a little in joke in the community about him cursing everyone else with his bad luck a little bit when he's on other people's chats during their run.
Oh, we didn't even mention it, but did Carbon get handy dropped? I didn't see.
I forgot
Does
to
chat
look.
know if Carbon got the gauntlet?
I I don't think he did, but I was only like I didn't like it went so fast that I easily could have misread it, but I don't think I saw it. I thought I saw, or I thought I saw the G for Gauntlet there.
Okay,
Thanks,
so corporate
Corp
image.
says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corpse got us.
Yeah. So, General Viper has a. Pretty much all the enemies in this game have both a common drop and a rare drop, like we were alluding to before, where the rare drop is a pretty low chance. For General Viper, his common drop is a Dragoon Gauntlet, so you expect to get it about 90% of the time or so, as mentioned before. But his rare drop is a Mithril Mail, which doesn't really, it's just nice, but it doesn't really help us. It's not a Dragoon Gauntlet, which is a +3 strength, which really speeds up and enables a lot of strategies. Handy here has a tendency to get that rare drop way more often than anybody else ever should see that drop.
Yeah, the first time I got coined was whenever I was like on a like 4 or 5 like runs in a row that were like low 210, 209, and every one of them in a row I got the Mithril Mail drop.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. Like I remember watching it. It really was like 3 runs like back to back in a row that it happened. And then you got it, you know, several other times sprinkled around that. Like it was bad.
PH is successfully through the Bunyip fight.
He did. While Carbon is actually moving into like what is going to be the last essential phase of this strat, going into for Lynx, his last fight. We're about to be at time for Carbon.
Yep, the time for Carbon will be after Lynx is defeated and the screen goes black after the post-combat menu.
Right. This extract should finish.
Yep.
It'll be at 210 for Carbon, which is a fan. Oh, not okay. Lena's gonna be the hero. Lena? No.
Lena. Oh no.
Oh no.
Dude, I would have won 3-3 there personally, but yeah, it still probably could have missed easily. Still alive. The funny thing is Surge isn't the one dying here, which is kind of the more.
Uh-oh, Lena's dead.
Oh, she's dead.
Oh,
Goodbye,
nope,
Lena.
she's alive.
Alive!
Yeah, this'll for sure be it.
There we go.
Carvin's saying in the chat he should have Frog Prince. I did say, hopefully that was the last Frog Prince. I have seen Carbon do Frog Prince on the Lynx fight when it goes a bit sideways.
GG Carbon.
GG Carbon.
GG to
It
Carbon.
was still a 210, just a later
210.43.
Yep, a high 210. That is, I think, the best time we've seen in the
Best time in the tournament.
Races so
Yeah.
far. Yeah, the tournament so far.
Best time in the tournament so far. Wow. And
Corporate
Red
had it
Portrait,
earlier.
so there you go.
And I will say it was asked in the chat if this is PS1, and this is a PS1 era game. Although the ideal way to run this is on slim PS2 because it allows you to do fast disk speed as a config option, and that's generally the fastest way to run this game, even faster than a lot of emulators even. So just a little trivia there.
We also can now shift our attention to PH and see how PH is going to do for his final 2. We actually get to see if PH is like 1 degree of separation in terms of like Chrono Cross runners from me, so he has a higher chance of getting handy dropped.
Quick note that while the PS2 is the optimal way to run this game, it is by no means required.
Oh yes,
it's just a very minor load times and menu stuff. But if you're looking to learn the game, that is definitely not a limiting factor.
For sure. Emulator is very viable to get a good speedrun time. So if that's the only thing you have access to, and you're still interested in picking up this run, go for it. By all means, please use an emulator. It is viable.
PH is getting through the Viper fight now. There's the G-Force.
Also, so Carbon is done, but I think it's become like somewhat of a soft rule in terms of doing Lynx at Fort Dragonia that you have to at least go until you see the cutscene following this next fight that's coming up.
Well, part of it also is because before this became an official category, there was, you might hear, I kind of still call it cat percent, and it's kind of a joke category where you have to do all of the cat related things. So cat percent in this case would be when your character actually becomes Lynx, when you actually become a cat.
Both runners get the gauntlet, so let's go.
No handy drop.
No handy drop.
Handy drop.
And
Carbon.
PH moving in. Go ahead,
Yep.
sorry.
I was gonna say, Carbon off on the side. That is a supposed to lose fight, so you want to lose as fast as possible. Not that it's
Yeah,
relevant for this run, but
for any percent, yeah, it's very easy. I mentioned earlier, this game gives you the option to heal, and the default is to heal. But yeah, when you finish the Lynx 2 fight, you want to specifically not heal Surge, especially if he's already at critical health, because then he'll die in 2 seconds, and that saves a lot of time.
Right.
And my favorite part.
F in chat for kid.
F in chat for kids.
Sorry, I stabbed Carbon's actual stream first. I should have stabbed the Limit Break radio. Or sorry, Limit Break stream first.
So interesting thing we didn't really touch on for these two fights, the Viper and Lynx fight, is that these fights can be a little bit tricky because, like we said before, whatever character is your lead character is the one that elements will more or less default to, and we can know that by pushing buttons in a certain order, we will always target the same person. The problem is that for these two fights, we're using Glenn as effectively our carry, but the game forces Surge to be in the front here. So muscle memory kind of goes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Ooh, that's pretty fast. Yeah. Muscle memory kind of goes out the window here because you'll have to do slightly different inputs to make sure you target Glenn. And I have seen many occasions where many runners will accidentally like strengthen Surge by accident or something like that. It's not end of the world, but it's definitely a bit of a time loss.
Right. Good fight from PH.
Yeah.
PH is
That was
going
a very
to
good fight.
come in at a 215.
You were right with your 215 call earlier. But yeah,
Yay.
I think
time.
We got it. GG's to Carbon and PH for this such a great match. I feel like definitely there were some trade-offs. Both had the lead at one point.
Right. It's also, yeah, PH kind of got a little bit of the rough end of the stick on RNG in some places, got third key, which is, just you have to sometimes hold that. CC kind of just does it. But congrats to both of them. Congrats to Carbon for winning. Congrats for PH. 215 is not a bad time at all.
Yeah. In fact, 215, I want to say is that like the second or third? I think
the third best time of the tournament so far.
It
in
is
terms of
not what
times
I
of the
was hoping
tournament,
to do. Hello.
Welcome
So
to PH.
just for this group, I actually had about 211 in my head as what I would probably need to have a chance to win today. What did Carbon get? 211 something? 210 something?
210, 41.
210. Yeah.
1041? That's about right.
Yep.
Yeah. So if I can be totally honest, I figured I was done when I missed guard skip. I have no idea where I was because I don't keep track of stuff. But with the Ivory Dagger and low strength, that was basically, to me, in my head, that was where the race was going to I would either be dead or still have a chance. And I got
You
third.
were actually ahead before you missed that. Carbon actually got it and passed you.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. So the problem is that I was going to probably lose a bunch of time. If he had Iron Dagger, I was going to lose a bunch of time to him no matter what. But not getting guard skip and his having Iron Dagger, I was probably a 3-minute turnaround at least. And then on top of that, I have no idea what key he got. But even if he got third key, he's like, the reality is Carbon's faster than I am as a runner. So I'm going to need probably either higher variance stuff or better luck. And like higher variance would be like if he made a mistake and didn't get guard skip, and I also didn't get guard skip, that would help. But my having Ivory Dagger after what looked like potentially a really good start is really punitive, and then bad surge strength means that you
Right.
can't really make up for it very easily. So,
I do think that it was still a very good race between both of you, and I think Dine is going to lead us to, I think, a raid target.
cool. Well, GG's Carbon. Congrats, dude.
GG to
Oh,
everyone.
yes.
It was a really close race until it wasn't, but until then it was a really close race. Thank you for the runners and the commentary for taking time out of their day. Always nice to see such community support. Be sure to follow the runners and the commentary. We will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard for Izu vs. Corporate Image. So we hope to see a lot of you here. We're going to throw the raid to Bomb. He is currently doing a casual Chrono Cross. Anyone that knows the game, please support, but try to remember it is his first time going through it.
No spoilers.
All right. Well, that was a disaster. Hey.
Thank you everyone for coming up. Hopefully see you again tomorrow. Everyone have a good night. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.